Welcome to Kenya's biggest conversation, the Situation Room, this Thursday, the 25th day of March 2021. Guess who's back? CT.
Good morning, Eric.
Good morning.
Yes.
How are you?
Very well, thank you.
So you finished all those matters of national importance that you were handling?
Actually, I did finish all those matters of national importance, beginning and ranging from, and not limited to, one, I had a son who was sitting for his exams. And it was important that I ensure that I entrench in his mind that I take that particular occurrence seriously. And the seriousness was by my being present. Now, this
being present as he started.
Being present as in I'm there to take him to and to pick him from.
Okay.
Yes. So that he can talk to me about it if he so wishes and discuss the exam and tell me what it is that happened. And my job was not to ask whether it was hard or not, just to listen. And I would be told. But you see, my absence, I am told, from what I have read and from what I have heard, the previous time, I think, I know you explained it and you said it, so I want to say it again. Standard Media Group are very cognizant of the fact that COVID-19 is with us.
Yes.
And when from among us somebody was unwell and exhibited symptoms that were considered to be akin to COVID, given that I have this chronological advantage, I was asked to isolate and stay at home. When the testing was done and the individual turned to be negative, I was asked to come back. But then something else happened. Standard Media decided that everybody should get tested. And during that particular period of testing, again, I was asked, because of the sensitivity of my chronology, to stay at home. I was not unwell. I was actually well. But we're simply adhering to the norms that we keep talking about every day in this show. That's all we're doing.
Bas.
Yes.
Welcome back.
Thank you.
How did your son find the exams?
He said it was interesting.
Interesting.
Yes, I'm quoting him verbatim. He said interesting. Some subjects, he says, this is what he said. Our teachers prepared as well.
Okay.
Yes.
Good.
We encountered things that we were familiar with. We may not have remembered everything, but they were not new. No.
Would you like to become a PR person in future?
As in, you need to expound and explain what it is you are trying to tell me.
Do you think he wants to join the communications industry? Become a public relations expert?
My son or myself?
Your son.
My son may very well head up in that direction.
Has he indicated that this is what he'd like to do? Because that answer is a very, very good answer. Our teachers prepared as well.
Well, he has a knack for speaking his mind.
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, this particular mango doesn't fall very far from the tree.
Clearly. Ndu,
Yes.
how are you doing?
Fine, thank you. Good morning.
Good morning to you. Good to see you.
Same here. All right.
So, welcome to the show, everybody. We're going to have conversations today ranging from here to Timbuktu and back.
And not limited to Timbuktu. And
crossing the oceans.
yes, to areas as far-flung as, what's the remotest part of China that you can think of?
The remotest part.
Yes.
Some on the border with Siberia.
Mongolia.
Good thinking. Mongolia or Siberia. Or which part of the world? Let's throw in Iceland just for the heck of it.
There you go. Okay. So today is the conclusion of a week that it's called the Francophone week. Okay. And it ends today in the middle of the week.
This one would argue, Eric, it is towards the end of the week as opposed to the middle of the week. Wouldn't you say?
My week ends on Sunday.
Weekend.
Okay. I think with that definition, then I have to agree with you.
Weekend.
Okay, so we'll have a conversation about that today. We'll be joined by the French Ambassador to Kenya, plus other diplomatic members of the diplomatic corps in the Francophone countries of Europe, and also the Egyptian Ambassador. What's the connection between Egypt and the French?
Well, there were certain parts of history that led to the colonization of Egypt by France, and you'll find that Egypt in official language is bilingual, English and French. So they were there from time immemorial.
Good. Okay. So, and also we'll be looking at what's happening to Kenya Airways. They recorded a proper loss.
That was a proper one.
Proper loss.
Sheesh.
We've had a conversation with the CEO of Kenya Airways a number of times in the past, and we'll have a conversation again with him today to ask him, okay, so was the result that you announced the day before yesterday really unexpected, bearing in mind that the entire airline ground to a halt for many months last year, that you still haven't even switched on all your engines yet? Was that unexpected? And especially considering where the airline was even before COVID. So we have a conversation and then ask them, so what do you want to do now? Do you want money from us? Do you want to wind up this company?
What is it?
Actually,
how do you get out of this hole?
but also think about it. I don't think there's any airline business in the world that isn't limping. So to look at the Kenyan situation would be to give it a comparative perspective.
Yeah.
Because in all honesty, despite these losses, we may find that we're actually doing better than others. Yes.
I think that Kenya Airways is a little bit worse off than limping. I think we have to get the paddles out at this point, CT.
Do you know why I say what I'm saying? Others have just shut down completely, finished, done, dusted. No, there's nothing to discuss.
Forget about it.
Yes. Get into another business. Maybe build trains. Okay. Make balloons. Some other business. But airline business.
Sure, we saw the plummeting of South African Airways, for example. They had, serious issues over time. The thing with Kenya Airways is that, and I guess that Alan will tell us as well, is that you saw the tail end of the issues without realizing that for years that they were really, really going through the ringers. And now that explanation of how they were going through the ringers is what is coming out today. They were really going through a very, very difficult time before anybody even knew that there was trouble.
The explanations are all good and well. The question that I would pose when we are looking at the issues surrounding is, how much of the explanation is actually truth? Explanations are explanations.
What's the reality?
Thank you, sir.
Vituko ground, ziko vipi. Now, let's start the conversation about COVID as well. As we look at the numbers, it's still spreading rapidly in the community. Do we know whether there's a new strain? Do we know whether there's anything that is standing out about this current wave? There's all the conversation around whether the current wave is infecting people faster or taking people to critical care faster or infecting younger population or older population. There's all that. But we'll also look at the headlines later. But how are we doing so far?
Well, yesterday, if we is still looking at the highest, yesterday recorded the highest numbers of COVID-19 infections in the country in a single day, 1,540 new cases in Kenya. A lower number of deaths, however, 18 new deaths in the country yesterday. So still, numbers rising, expected to do more so in the coming days. 124,707. Those are the numbers that we're looking at now in terms of a collective report. 2,066 deaths is what have been recorded in the country so far. So yes, about the variants. The possibility of variants infecting people very high. Unfortunately, in order for you to establish that, there's certain amount of investigations and testing that needs to be done, which we also know right now is not taking place. The reasons as to why this is not happening, from explanations that we were given, is that, it needs some funding, it needs some attention, it needs some priority. That has not been given. So there is a very high possibility that people are being infected by a second variant or a different strain of the coronavirus. However, we can't say definitely yes because the practice of science behind it just has not been carried out. Is it necessary to do? Absolutely. Can it be done? Again, absolutely. Is it being done? No. Maybe at some point it'll be done, but it still seems that we're running after this thing. Okay, because we see explanations given is that we see different kinds of symptoms now for COVID. For the longest time, it has been that you feel some kind of respiratory burden. You feel as if you have this general feeling of fatigue, and you have the symptoms of the common flu. That is what it was for the longest time. Now we are beginning to, and then also the anosmia and loss of sense and of smell and taste. But now we are seeing other symptoms. Now those other symptoms could point to the possibility of other of other strains or other variants, such as what we've seen, like symptoms akin to food poisoning, stomach upset, nausea and vomiting and things like that we have seen in the strains in the UK, in South Africa and Brazil, have then come in line with those other variants. That different symptoms and the onset of which are much faster, much quicker, and much more severe in terms of symptoms. But we can't prove it because the practice of science is just not being applied to it right now in Kenya.
The simple thing about a virus that must be remembered is that it's a living organism. And everything we're doing, if you were that virus, is these are people who want to get rid of me and to actually kill me. So what do? You fight back. Now, the process of fighting back is what we refer to in our terms as mutation. Now, how do you mutate? You don't just adapt, but you become stronger and you do what you're doing with greater vigor. That is fighting back. Now, if you look at the countries that are affected, by the way, Brazil, 300,000 dead.
Just like that.
Just like that. Unfortunately, they have a president whose idea of public health
doesn't exist.
I thank you for completing that statement. But why we are at great risk is because Nairobi is a hub. Nairobi, people meet in Nairobi to travel all over the continent. And the same happens with Oliver Tambo, Johannesburg. The same thing happens with South Africa. If you look at countries in this continent who are not a hub, you will find, for instance, this is where now poor management of a country helps. Road networks are terrible. People don't intermingle because they don't travel.
Yeah.
But when there's ease of travel, there's ease of interaction. That ease of interaction guarantees
transmission.
Yeah, so it would not be surprising if it is actually proven, forget the anecdotal, that we have the three strains, the Brazilian, the UK, and the South African strains in Kenya. It would not be surprising. No,
it wouldn't be surprising. It needs to be established, however. If you're dealing with that, it needs to be established. And then there's all this other talk of vaccines as well. And then what those vaccines would be able to create a line of defense against. And so I will look at this story later, but the Russian vaccine, which already is in the country, is said to be able to protect against the second variants of COVID-19 or other strains of COVID-19. So look at those details later. But just again, looking at Brazil, 227,179 cases in Brazil. We're looking at a population of 221,000, 300 deaths. Look at it like this. The United States, that has 300 million people in terms of population, has lost 500,000 people with 30 million infections. Brazil, with 200 million cases, has 200 million people in terms of population, has 12 million cases and 300,000 deaths. Over half the deaths that have occurred in the United States have occurred in Brazil, and they're increasing on a daily basis. Let's just look at the numbers. Yesterday, we saw 90,000+ cases in Brazil. It was, if I'm going to look at those numbers, it was 84,996 the day before. Yesterday, 90,564. They're very quickly getting to where the United States was 3 months ago. Recording 100,000 cases in a day is not a joke. And 2,224 deaths. The day before that, there were 3,158. But these guys are really, really going through it.
It's really, 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 really tough.
Yeah.
But the high number of positive cases being recorded in a day is also indicative of high number of tests being conducted in a day.
And then also could relate to that high number of people who are presenting themselves to medical facilities with symptoms. And because of that, they're being tested.
Let's take a break now at 17 minutes after 6. This is Kenya's biggest conversation, The Situation Room. Wherever you are, we are already live streaming on SpiceFM KE, YouTube, and Facebook and Twitter. Say hello. We'll be saying hello to you shortly as we take a look at the weather. Good morning.
SpiceFM.
It's getting hot in here.
Oh, everybody steals. It's better a thief who brings something small back. And I say to myself, there's no better thief. A thief is a thief, period.
All those bribes, how much they're getting per year, how much inconvenience they're causing. As much as you call it a small case, it's worth it to be convicted.
The truth is, we are a tribal nation. Because if we were not tribal, and I want to go back to this, you cannot continue walking around with a mug which is clean outside and it's rotten inside.
We have become a Fuliza country. We have mortgaged our country because of debt.
You've got one chef working and the assistant chef wakati anatakana koroge unga nini hayuko.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. The weather with Spice FM.
Mostly clear skies in store for Nairobi. 15 degrees is what we're looking at right now. It'll go to highs of 29 today. Nyeri's clear at 11, going to highs of 27, down to lows of 10. 12 will be the low in Nakuru today. It's clear at 14, going to highs of 29. 27 will be recorded as the high in Eldoret. Clear at 11, coming down to lows of 12. 19 degrees and clear conditions in Kisumu this morning. Highs of 31, 15 and clear in Kakamega as well. 33 the high and lows of 14. It'll also go to high of 33 in Mombasa. Mostly clear at 25. 25 also is the lucky number in Malindi this morning, going to highs of 33 and down to lows of 27. Mostly clear conditions in Kampala at 20, highs of 28 and lows of 18. It's cloudy in Dar es Salaam this morning at 24, highs of 34 and lows of 25. It's raining in Johannesburg, 14 degrees. It'll go to highs of 19 and down to lows of 10. It's also raining in Lagos at 26, highs of 31 and lows of 25. Wet skies also in Kinshasa at 23. We'll see highs of 29 coming back down to lows of 23. 16 degrees and sunny in Beijing, highs of 21 and lows of 12. It's 8 degrees and cloudy in Paris, highs of 14 and lows of 6. Clear conditions in London at 7, highs of 13 and lows of 9. And Wednesday night in New York is reading cloudy at 10. Coming into Thursday, it'll be highs of 13 and lows of 10.
"24/7 around the world, non-stop. This is Spice FM. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM.
Right. How are you doing? Everybody's online. Who's online?
Everybody. Forrester Muganda is tuned in from Ebuberi Mumias and says Nikondani Ampango. Okay. Peter Mwangombe says Rona is no respect of persons. It's an equal opportunity killer. It will collect when the debt falls due. Ouch. Teacher Bunde says good morning, Eric Latif from Duokon City Muga. I'm equally tuned in from Gong. Can we reach with the situation to be discussed? We definitely will. Donald Makanga says, listening from Dagoretti, Kabiria. Good morning, team. Good morning to you too, my friend. Abraham Lucorito, locked. Kisumu Kibos is locked, and that's according to Jeffrey Mochama. Good morning to you. Jose Minor Nduhyo says, good morning. Ndu, is it true that if you go to any part of the world and you don't find an Igbo, then it's not a good place? Okay. Beda Ashley says, good morning, tuned in from Machakos.
There's an Igbo everywhere in the world.
If there's no Igbo, then that place is not nice. I've heard it before. It's true. Frederick Owur Ogutu is tuned in from Koru.
Okay.
Waterman Jeffrey tuned in this morning from Hennepin County. Washira Wilfred says, hi into Eric and CT. You look great in the room. Well, Asante following in from Gishugu, and he's in the company of his first lady and the entire brood. Okay, welcome back, CT. Good to have you back. John Rory says, good morning, all tuned in from Mombasa, Kisauni. I love your show and we love to have you in. Samuel Wamukota tuned in from Migori. And Robert Mbogos tuned in from Mombasa. Alex Tomato tuned in from Kilgoris. And Langat Nicholas tuned in and ready for today's situation. Bishop Goro Omokaya is tuned in from Gitari. Tuned in from Salt Lake City, Utah. Wow, that is where Patrick Loturi is tuned in from. Beda Ashley, like we said, is tuned in from Machakos. And Ward Alaro is already in the house. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning, everybody, and thank you very much for tuning in. CT, today's proverb.
Being a leader is like a borrowed garment. I know you're waiting. That's it, really. There's no more. In here, too.
Being a leader is like a borrowed garment.
In
Yes.
this case, like a short garment. It doesn't really cover up. Okay.
Now you have it. Now you don't. Now it makes you look good. It isn't yours.
It isn't yours. Doesn't matter how good you look.
It's not yours.
It's not yours.
It never was. Even if it is loaned to you for a month, it still isn't yours. Even if you are told to use it for the next 6 months, it still isn't yours.
Ya kwazima haisitiri.
Bas. That is it.
That's it.
That's it.
Let's take a look at the headlines. Let's start with this one. So, the day before yesterday, photos start going around on social media about this consignment that looks like it's written Sputnik 5. And it said that these are Sputnik vaccines at the JKIA. So who's importing them? How? What's happening? This, that, and the other. Now it has emerged that the Russian vaccine has landed amid burning questions. Kenya has granted Sputnik 5 emergency use authorization, even as debate rages on how a consignment of the Russian jabs was brought in and prices set, even as the country registers a slow uptake of the AstraZeneca doses. So, the CAS for Health, Mercy Mongangi, was asked this question yesterday, and she said that once the vaccine attains its full market authorization, it will be distributed and sold like paracetamol in the market. And then the Pharmacy and Poisons Board says it has cleared Sputnik vaccine and revealed that there are 2 other COVID-19 vaccines awaiting authorization. So according to what the PPB is saying, this one, we have given it clearance, first of all, as emergency authorization and not yet registered. Now, I am a bit confused. When they say we have given this clearance for emergency authorization, no, we have not yet registered this in the country. When it is registered, it shall be sold like paracetamol. What are we saying?
Actually, they give a hint. Emergency use actually clearly points you to what they're saying, that we have looked, we have studied, we have done due diligence, and we consider that it can be used for emergency. Meaning, now there's a word that follows that, approval. Approval means you don't need to come back to us for this thing. You can just continue using it. And the example of paracetamol, you don't go around asking the manufacturer of paracetamol to tell you more about it. You simply go and buy it and use it. Approval means it's been given the tick, absolute tick, and said it is okay. Whatever else you say, it is fit for the use that it is prescribed for. Emergency use means precisely that. This thing is still under the microscope. We are still checking it to make sure that there aren't any untoward effects. There aren't adverse effects that we haven't seen because of the smaller groupings within the studies. It's precisely that. It's for emergency use. And remember, COVID is an emergency.
But now, you know the way it's coming out from the two, from the CAS and then from the Pharmacy and Poisons Board. It's like we have not yet authorized this to be given to the public. We are authorizing this to be given only in the event of an emergency. And then you're wondering,
That's a
is the
reporting-
vendor allowed to give this to this?
It's a reporting issue. The failure, and I'm using the word failure deliberately, is to communicate effectively what is meant by emergency use, authorization, and approval. Okay? They are two distinct, they are differences. And any drug that is under development, there's a point at which they say, look, given what we've seen, I'm repeating myself here, there is more good than harm that we can see from this. But we still need to be looking into it to determine, because remember, studies are done within certain numbers of people. When you now authorize it for emergency use, you've broadened the base of people who can access it.
Okay.
And so you are now able to find out even more about it.
Okay.
It's not just numbers, but you've also increased the diversity of its use. That's what's happening with emergency use. Yes.
So the private vendor can sell it to anybody who is willing.
It is within the control of those people who administer it. Remember, even before we started discussing this term, remember there are some drugs that you're told, this one, my friend, without a prescription, you're not getting it.
Yes.
Okay?
Yes.
Now, that has been approved. But it is understood that if it isn't managed, it can do you harm. So they limit it. That is not experimental anymore. It's been approved, but it requires managing. Because if not used as per prescription, it can cause you more harm than the good it's supposed to do. That's where the opioids come in.
Okay.
Okay.
Then the other issue that was also brought up in this story is they quote Dr. Ahwale, who is in charge of the rollout, the head of the task force on COVID-19 vaccine. He says, as private firms, they can bring it, that's a Sputnik 5, but as the government, we cannot buy from them because it is not authorized by the World Health Organization.
Again, terminology. When you're dealing with something this sensitive, you can't go around playing around with semantics. You need to be clear about, and this is assuming that people won't understand technical terms. They will understand. For heaven's sake, explain it to them. All right? There's nothing new about these procedures. All these drugs that we take for granted that we use go through all these procedures that we're dealing with here. By the time you hear those phases, it means they've tested whether it can be acceptable to the body. They've tested whether it can be harmful. All right? They have ensured that what we refer to as the good outweighing any possible bad has been certified. It's been proved.
Yes.
Okay? But because it is going to be something that people consume in large numbers, you cannot allow this particular drug to be used by these large numbers until you're absolutely sure. And so to be absolutely sure, you put a caveat.
Put a caveat there. It's only for emergency use.
Yes, you put a caveat.
Okay. All right. So we are here. We have the rollout then of the vaccine. That's a national rollout of the vaccine that's very slow. And I don't understand why it is still this slow. We were having a conversation yesterday with the two governors, and they were talking about, yes, many of the healthcare workers have the hesitancy to come and take this vaccine. And that could explain part of the reason why the uptake of the AstraZeneca national vaccine campaign is slow. But I'm still not convinced. Because I think that even though you'll tell me that there are doctors, there are nurses, there are clinical officers, there are ordinary citizens who would hesitate to take the AstraZeneca vaccine, there are still many more who are willing to take it.
Yes, they are.
If you go to any public hospital or any private hospital, because the vaccine program is not saying that we are first of all vaccinating only people in public hospitals. It's healthcare workers across the country. Have you gone to any healthcare facility and asked and found that only 1% are willing to take this thing? I don't think so. Because you're talking about cleaners, workers, security, clerks, people who work in administration, people who work in the labs, people who...
For whom it can be taken to them. Because honestly, if you look at also the way in which it's being done right now, it's come to us. And we also know that the setup of a lot of health workers, that they have to be at their place of work. So what is wrong with setting up facility for them to have it where they are working?
Take it to them.
Take it to them.
You know, there's something about COVID that we must also speak about. The negative press, which has accompanied the positive press about the vaccines that are available. Remember, healthcare workers will understand these things better than we do.
Yeah.
The COVID vaccine is not the first vaccine they've dealt with.
Yeah.
Now, but with anything new, this is now nothing to do with being a health worker. It has to do with being a human being. People want to see how it pans out. Let others take it. Let us observe. When we are sure that there's nothing untoward happening, then we will present ourselves. Anyone who's been involved in research, medical research, where there is a research drug being taken, it is... One can even draw the graph for you. It's almost flat at the beginning, then it rises very steadily. Now, towards the end of the study, depending on the years it suddenly spikes. It goes right up. Because people have observed their neighbors, their friends, their relatives, and they realize these people aren't dying. There's nothing negative happening.
Yeah.
They now, and then when there's now the threat that this thing may come to end, they now rush to also go and get this thing that other people have gotten.
So you're saying what is happening now is normal human behavior?
Yeah, I'm saying when it comes to medication and the taking of it, and given the press that the COVID vaccine has received, believe me, people will take the vaccine. But right now, they're at the wait and see stage of, okay, let's see who's going to take it and who is not going to take it.
But I actually also think that a lot of people are waiting for this supposed front line to get through. I think that if this thing is opened up, you'll be shocked at the number of people
many
who come out
people
and
will
get
be
it.
willing.
I do not doubt.
Yeah.
Even the healthcare workers
them,
city,
yeah.
I believe that if you, for example, went to Mama Lucy today and set up and say, we are vaccinating at Mama Lucy, many
It
people,
will be packed.
many of the people who work at Mama Lucy Hospital will go for the vaccine.
There is that, Eric, and I'm in full agreement. But also, from this one, I'm going to sound like an apologist for the Ministry of Health here. If you want to roll out something countrywide, you really need to pilot it. I think what we're seeing, in my mind, is piloting. Let's see how it works when we do this before you roll it out. Because if you simply just start and then roll it out, it'll be chaotic.
More chaotic than it is now.
Infinitely. This will be nothing compared to what it will be. Let it go through a process because even now, I have people who are my contemporaries telling me they've gone to places and been told, if you're not a health worker, even if you're over 60, we cannot vaccinate you.
Cannot vaccinate you.
Yes, they have been told. There are places where I have been told, people so long as you present yourself, you'll get vaccinated. So, I think that we are still at a phase, and those in charge may not be saying it openly, but they want to see how people are responding to this whole thing before they actually now roll it out. Again, you will find that the narrative, when you go to one health facility, they'll tell you one thing, you go to another, they'll tell you something else. So I'm saying they're still figuring it out. And when they figured it out and they roll it out, it'll be simpler, it'll be easier.
They need to step on it. I'll be honest. They need to step on this figure.
How long do you want to give them?
To figure it out. They need to step on it, man.
I said I was juxtaposing. I didn't say I was prophesying, did I?
How long would you like to give them if you juxtapose this with time?
And prophesy at the same time. I would say that by the time we begin the new month, they'll have a clear idea of what they should be doing.
In 6 days' time?
Yes, that is precisely what I'm saying. In
Let
6
us
days'
see.
time.
Next week, Wednesday, Thursday.
Yes. Expect the space to be opened up more, and you will see more results. We will still hear complaints, but many more people are going to be vaccinated.
Per day.
Yes, per day.
Okay. 24/7, let's take a break, see what's happening on the roads.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life. 24/7, around the world, non-stop. This is Spice FM.
The realest and craziest couple are now on your screens. Terrence and Chebi are bringing you top celebrities and trendsetters on Thursday Night Live. It's double the fun and double the laughter every Thursday at 10 p.m. on KTN Home.
Spice FM, Malindi.
All right, there's a gridlock already on Waiakiwe this morning. Inbound that Jogona's vehicles are turning back to use James Gishuru. Unfortunately, that's what's happening right now. The Red Hill bypass is actually open and can be used. But the problem is that right at the turning to the bypass, this is where we are seeing this gridlock. So, it looks like if you're headed in that direction, think about going the other way, at least for now, if you've not gotten there yet, because it seems to be quite the mess. So there's traffic heading from ABC Place towards Westlands. There seem to be two separate accidents just around Safaricom. So that's the problem, that two accidents have occurred, and that's what's causing this crazy traffic in Westlands
There's also
right now.
confusion at Bunyala roundabout. This guy who's doing that highway, he's blocked the road.
So there's no coming or going.
Coming
right?
towards...
Yes. You're not really sure what you should do. And whether he's blocked it right up to the end of the stadium. It is confusing, isn't it?
It's quite confusing. So Bunyala Road up to the other one is called what? Lusaka. That stretch.
Yes.
Not going to be used today. It's going to be an interesting morning. So we need to keep an eye out for this one. So if you're heading in the direction of Bunyala or coming from the side of Lusaka, you can't use that one right now because it's been blocked off. You have to go round or not go in that direction at all. Let's take a look at how this opens up. Outer Ring already packed, going towards Kariobangi, and we see that happening already this morning. Let's take a look at Thika Road and Mombasa Road Greater when we come back. But already looking crazy. SpiceFM KE on Twitter. That's how you can get in touch with us. Text on 40127.
94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
All right, 2327. More headlines.
Okay.
Okay. MPs want government accounting officers probed for misuse of cash. And the query follows the following ministries, state departments, and agency. Okay? And I'm going to read the specific targets plus the monies that are being queried. Education, 103 million shillings overpayment to secondary schools. How that happens? Sports, 300 million unrecovered. IEBC, 691.5 million surcharge to former CEO. Energy, 870 million surcharge to PS on gas year 2 project. Health, 1.7 billion CT scan tender. Correctional services, 111 million surcharge for ex-PSs. National Treasury, 35 million cash management solution. Judiciary, 9.4 million loss at registry. Now, the Parliamentary Accounts Committee, doing what periodically it does, is pointing us in the direction of some of the queries that they have come up with and questions that they would like responded to. Okay? What they did was they reviewed the Auditor General's queries for the financial year ending June 2018, and it was tabled on Tuesday. This is history, history 2018, 3 years ago. However, does this not qualify as justice delayed? Maybe there's a process here that I don't understand, and I think, let me say it, it is good that it's in the public eye that this is what we're querying. But you see, it just joins the queue
Of other things that are being queried.
with even infinitely more money than this. The question that came to my mind is, okay, you're pointing this out. What about the others with horrendous amounts with a B at the end of it? What about those? But let's say that they are doing their job, and after doing their job, they pass it on to other agencies whose task is to follow up and ensure that if there's any wrongdoing, the culprits are brought to book.
Okay.
We can only hope.
One can only hope.
One can only hope that that's
Oh,
actually
yes.
what is done.
Yeah.
All right. So there seems to be some uproar as what it's called in this headline, Raila party kicks out Malala and gives the seat to the coast. That's the headline. Glean what you will from that.
Yes.
ODM yesterday moved to consolidate its influences at the Senate by removing Cleophas Malala of Amani National Congress from the position of Deputy Minority Leader. In the move that has kicked off a major storm, again, interesting adjectives, especially among the NASA coalition partners, the Kakamega senator was replaced by Kilifi's Stuart Madzayo. This came as leaders from the coast region are reportedly planning to unveil a new political party next week. Kilifi Governor Amason Kingi is set to become the leader of the new party. Some coast leaders accuse ODM leader Raila Odinga of unfairness in sharing leadership positions in parliament, which they said is populated by MPs from his Nyanza background. They say that this is what has informed their decision to form their own party ahead of 2022.
Let me ask this question. Explain this unfairness.
It's not fair now.
And remember, we're talking about politics. What's unfair again?
Regional balance.
There's no balance in the party. There's, selection of only people from Raila's background. So in order for them to get ahead,
we
they
keep
need their own
saying
party.
that Coast is predominantly ODM.
Yes, it
Right?
is. It is.
If Coast is predominantly ODM, go to the National Assembly. Who is the leader of the minority in the National Assembly? Who is the deputy leader of minority? Who is the whip? Who is the deputy whip? Is any of them from this predominant region?
Nope.
Go to the Senate. Ask the same question. So, what is are we just flower girls in this party of yours? We don't get anything? Look at all those leadership positions. They've gone to Nyanza and Western.
Actually, let's speak truth to this. Predominantly Nyanza.
Yes.
Okay? And a little sprinkling of Western from time to time. And now the sprinkling has been removed, has it not?
So now it would appear that there's a little bit of sprinkling now in the appointment of Batzayo and say, okay, let's give it to the coast to show that, you know what, it was not
We got
intentional
you.
per se. This is an inclusive coalition.
You see, what I'm really asking myself is, when we are talking about a political situation, really, how do we justify the use of the word fair? Because with political situations, I think the word I would use is expediency, not fairness. You are rewarded. Look, to understand it, I'm looking at page 6 of the Star, and they're saying UDA party reserve top post. Reserve top posts. Meaning, preference has already been stated. This is what we are going to do. And it's what political parties do all the time.
Okay.
Yes.
So this expediency, is it unjustifiably being used against?
I would use a different term for it. Is it the most prudent step to take? Because if you do want other people to assist you in your party goings on, then you really need to demonstrate a consideration.
We also need to look at the reality of the sentiments that are being put out here, that if a coast party were to be formed, regardless of how potent it is or not at the onset, that it would pose a considerable threat to this same ODM that says it has power at the coast. And they have taken that into consideration. Because this appointment of this gentleman, Madzayo, is not just out of the blue, who shall we put there, but it is a clear strategic move to say that, you know what, we recognize you. So all this complaint, let's now show you that we actually are inclusive.
No, but please bear in mind, when you say formation, it's formation of a new party or an amalgamation of parties that exist.
Yes.
Coastal parties exist.
Yes, but in this case...
They have always existed.
Yes, they have. But you understand that they're talking about one that will give them the kind of representation that they require at the national level and has not practiced that way.
And I'm saying this isn't language that is new either.
Yes, but it has not been shown with as much might as that which they require. And this time they're saying we're coming out guns blazing.
Actually, they should and they ought to. The only thing is, right now, the only thing we have to handle and manage and discuss a situation is words that have been uttered. I would like to see. And then there is one little chink in this particular armor. There's the leaders talking, and then there are the people who supposedly follow them. Are they on board?
Well,
you see, it is a question that you must ask. You, as a political person, here, note, the word is specifically used, person. You may have your say and broadcast the thoughts that you have on a certain matter. But if it involves other people who are called voters, then the question about where they stand has to be asked. Have they been convinced that this is something that is good for them? If they have, then indeed what you're saying is true. If they haven't, then I would say, well, there's still some work to do. The proof of this particular pudding is awaiting.
Let's see. So they say they're going to launch this
next week. Is not too far away. So
it's been a conversation that's been bubbling under for a long time. Let's see. Let them come together and say, so this is our one movement. Whether it's a movement that brings together all other political parties into one coalition, or all of them forming one party. Let's see, and then let's also see what the people say. It's about time that they. It's actually a very good reading of what was happening to clear up a Malala.
Consider which party does it belong to?
ANC.
Yes. ANC as a party and ODM. Have we seen them as the charmiest of charms in the recent past?
No, really.
No.
Yes. So, and this coalition we keep speaking about, does it really exist in practice?
ODM is a bulldozer. First, they kicked out the leader of Fort Kenya, who has signed an agreement from being the minority leader.
I think it's an interesting term, bulldozer. There are those who would argue that they are pragmatic.
Right.
Yes. Yeah. You look at the situation and ask yourself, what do I stand to gain or lose with this person? Quick arithmetic, make your decision.
Oh, yeah. Okay. It's 14 minutes to 7, time for another quick break. As we go into this quick break, let's remind you what's happening at the Current Country Club. The Kenya Savannah Classic, represented by ABSA, is off to a hot start at the Current Country Club following the conclusion of the Magical Kenya Open a couple of days ago, which was won by Justin Harding from South Africa. The tournament is still taking place in a bubble, but you can still catch it live on KTN News. It's worth noting that the European Tour and the tournament partner ABSA have come together to reward every single birdie raked in this double header. ABSA have pledged to reward every birdie scored with 1,000 shillings, while the European Tour, through their Golf for Good initiative, will match the figure with 2,000 shillings for every birdie. Funds collected will not be given to the players, but instead they'll be used to fund a charitable cause in Kenya. This double header enjoys the support of Safaricom, Welken Wireless, Copycat, Sports, Arts and Social Development Fund, the Current Country Club, Johnny Walker, Keringet, AAR, and Hemingways.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM,
All right,
Nairobi.
To 7, we're looking at more headlines in the papers. What do you have? Fallout gets messy. That's the one we just talked about. And then there was a court order that has halted President Uhuru's directives right in their tracks. So the president the other day issued an executive order where he instructed the Kenya Tea Development Agency, KTDA, to conduct elections for its directors in 54 factories. That has unfortunately been suspended by the court. The suspension order that's to be enforced until the court hands its final verdict is to give KTDA and the national government enough time to legally battle on who should take control of this sector that has 620,000 registered small-scale tea growers. This matter of tea is going left, right, and center. This basically follows another application that had been made by Attorney General Kayara Kariuki at a different court, where he had sought to stop KTDA from conducting elections. Okay? Last year, AG went to court, so court issued an order halting KTDA from conducting elections. This time again, the AG, who is the chief advisor to the president, advises the president to order KTDA to hold elections while he has a case pending in court. So the judge has been like, boss,
Where are we?
boss, the fact that there are lawful orders in place obtained by none other but the AG staying elections of the petitioner in Mombasa, and further the issue whether KTDA and its subsidiaries ought to be aligned, it is in order for the interim order to be issued. That is according to Justice Anthony Mrima yesterday.
You know, there's something interesting happening here. According to the Business Daily, there's a headline, bold black. Kenya risks UK blacklist over its open TZ border. And this is what they say. COVID-19 Kenyans face quarantine in Britain over neighbors' coronavirus threats. Okay? They're saying Kenya risks the UK's red list. Apparently there's a red list. This red list is for countries where travelers are subjected to mandatory stay at quarantine hotels due to the government's reluctance to close the border with Tanzania. Now, this is a problem because on the one hand, there's the fear that if Kenyans proceed with these restrictions, there'll be retaliation from Dar es Salaam. Dodoma, to be more precise, actually, but we say Dar es Salaam. And then there's the issue again of if there are these restrictions, then there'll be no tourists. Tourists will not be coming to Kenya. Well, talk about being caught between the devil and the deep blue sea.
Right.
And apparently the source is a British Telegraph newspaper. They quoted a source from the British High Commission in Nairobi. Yes. And that Kenya is likely to be added to this list on the 29th of March.
Okay.
Okay.
Couple of days away.
Yes, a Monday like this.
Right.
So
Speaking of
Tanzania
things-
is already on the red list.
Oh, yeah.
And Rwanda is on the red list.
Yes. The Rwanda thing I don't understand. Can someone explain it to me?
I think they too, they don't understand it at this point.
The
as
source
to
of
why
the High Commission. Probably.
Because Rwanda, if you're talking about a country that has very pristinely and meticulously tried to maintain the order that is required with this threat, it's them. Anyway.
Okay.
Speaking of things that don't go away, top official order to give KEMSA tenders. The KEMSA issue, in case you forgot, is still here with us. A suspended top official at the Kenya Medical Supplies Authority says he was under pressure to unlawfully process tenders of firms awarded multi-million shilling tenders. KEMSA Procurement Director Charles Juma yesterday appeared before the National Assembly Public Investments Committee, where he said he had been ordered by KEMSA CEO John Manjari, also suspended, to issue commitment letters, documents with no legal basis in procurement, to various suppliers. So he was under duress, according to him. The committee heard that Manjari would order Juma to issue commitment letters to companies, some of which seemed shadowy, immediately, even without any due diligence done on the firms. In several instances, Juma divulged, Directors of the companies would walk into his office and claim to have been sent by Manjari. One such involved Azure Commercial Services. Heard of that before? A company that had won a 347 million shilling tender to supply KEMSA with face masks. Juma told the committee that the company's directors walked into his office and claimed to know the CEO and handed Juma a phone to speak to someone aware of the deal. I quote, "I spoke to a woman who introduced herself as Dorothy. She told me the two directors were her daughters and the CEO had said, I help them." He further told the committee that he went to the CEO's office and confirmed that he had sent them. When I asked whether they had been sent samples of the masks, they said that they had been sent to the CEO's office. So, back and forth. All in all, these tenders that were given where you raise your eyebrows and say, how on earth could somebody get such a tender so quickly? Apparently, he was told to approve these forthwith and henceforth.
Complete circus. We're just being taken round and round again. So they are still investigating this particular matter. And they'll tell us what happened one day. One of these days, we are actually going to get a result of this investigation.
Yeah.
Okay. This is just crazy. Let's look at another headline.
Yes, let's.
City.
Well, my friend, what I'm looking at here is something particularly interesting. Fines, this one's really odd. Eh? Fines for phones with battery life of less than a day. Okay?
Huh?
Yes, daily, business daily. I keep calling it daily business.
It's okay.
Okay.
Whatever.
Dealers in mobile phones with poor battery performance face jail terms and substantial fines under proposed laws aimed at eliminating substandard products from the market. 3 years is the jail term for importers of a phone whose battery life is less than 8 hours old. Okay, draft regulators published yesterday by the Communication Authority of Kenya provide a 3-year jail term or 300,000 shilling fine or both fine and payment and jail. Very good. This is energetic. For anyone found importing or selling a mobile phone with a battery life of less than 8.
Who's instituting these laws now?
Communication Authority of Kenya.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
All right.
Essentially, so do I. So do I.
Only thing though is, and I looked at that headline and I asked myself, it's like we're trying to force innovation. We cannot force innovation. Innovation happens when innovation happens.
Innovation can be guided also.
This is guided.
Guided, that's a good word.
Yes.
Guided.
It can be guided and it can be supported.
As opposed to sitting on your neck. Okay. Sure.
So basically what you're saying is any phone that cannot, whose battery cannot hold charge for a day, don't allow it into the market.
No,
because there are available phones in the market that can do this.
You see, what I haven't read here is what happens when the battery life of that particular phone dies. Because at some point, the life of that battery comes to an end and there's need for you to replace it. But it will have lasted for a time and not you buy it and barely 2 hours it's bleeping and telling you all sorts of crazy things.
Bleeping.
And telling you to charge it.
Yes.
As we were talking about ICU beds yesterday, there's a story here in the nation that says ICU beds idle in Mombasa as the third wave hits other counties. As COVID patients scramble for unavailable ICU beds across the country, in Mombasa, the facilities remain almost empty. By Saturday, only 8 patients had been admitted to hospital on oxygen support at the county's less than 30 ICU beds. Coast General, Teaching and Referral, only 2 patients had been admitted to ICU. Pandia Hospital, 5. Aga Khan University Hospital, 1. However, no COVID patient in Mombasa was on ventilators by press time. Current admission standard 41, with Shimolatewa Maximum Prison having the highest number of patients at 15. Governor Joho cited a county facility with 12 unit beds, which is currently 50% full. So in Mombasa, at least when it comes to ICU capacity, this is there, according to this story. And he says, we almost had 800 beds for COVID patients, but we dismantled some, remaining with about 100 after flattening the curve. But we are reopening the treatment and isolation center that we had dismantled. We have the capacity and the sufficient ICU beds.
That, in my opinion, is half the story. What are the prevalence rates of COVID infection at the coast? That is one question. Are we saying that the health administrators and the health personnel in that particular county have actually mastered the art of understanding how to suppress the infection increase in that particular part of the country? Are we saying that whatever the measures they've put in place have been effective? This is something that I would like to know. Because if this case is represented by the things I'm saying, then indeed the coast would be a place to emulate. We'd be able to say, look, why don't we look at what they're doing?
What they're doing.
Yes, and then we can follow.
But I think also it's the fact that they have their beds, but the virus is not as... In terms of cases, if you look at what C.S. Mwangangi was saying yesterday, Nairobi comprises 57.7% of the cases.
Yes.
So that means that's why you can see the heavy burden in Nairobi and Nairobi hospitals and those surrounding, going to Machakos, going to Kiambu, and you don't see the same. Now, like EPA was telling us, they also still have capacity in ICU.
You see, it follows patterns that you see of infection rates even around the world. Countries with low population, probably a large geographical area, sparsely populated, hardly. Iceland have more or less gone back to normal as we speak, okay? The other countries that have followed suit. But if you look at these countries, they are smaller countries, smaller populations, okay? And they're able to manage. So it isn't as though there aren't places. Australia is one of the few big countries that has actually shown a very clear sign of managing and grappling with the virus and managing to keep it under control. I am simply saying that the issues that have brought the infections to the fore in Nairobi are not absent in Mombasa or in the parts of the country. That's what I'm saying. So this is probably the lull before the storm.
Wow. Goodness, one can only hope not. But it is the reality. Keep it right here. This is Kenya's biggest conversation, the Situation Room. In the next hour, we have a conversation about the Francophone week and what has been happening, how the countries have been celebrating this. We'll be having a conversation with the French ambassador to Kenya and other guests as well. For about 1.5 hours, we'll have this conversation. And also, we'll be live on KTN Home. We'll be live as well. Continue to live stream the show on SpiceFM KE, on YouTube, on Facebook and Twitter. CT Muga is back and he's happy to be back. He's enjoying his presence in the show this morning. Good morning. This is Kenya's biggest conversation, the Situation Room. It's now 7 o'clock.
SpiceFM, Nakuru.
All right, so 2 accidents happening on Waiaki Way this morning, and that's what's causing that traffic. Right around Safaricom, and then heading down as you get well into Westlands, and so that's a problem this morning. And folks turning around and using the James Gishuru route to get out of that area. So that's what's happening ahead. It's flowing really smoothly this morning on Juja Road, not a problem there. Thika Road doesn't actually look too bad. Getting to the Pangani underpass is where you have a little bit of a hold up, but then after that it looks pretty good as you're getting into the city. Roiro, Kimbo to Kenyatta Road, the service lane is a two-way from Juja Town to outbound, and so that's not much of a problem today. So yeah, apart from that accident on Waiaki Way coming into the city, that should be all right. Mombasa Road, we still have some problems. The interchange, Likoni interchange there, packing up already towards the southern bypass. There's already some traffic. Remember that Bunyala Road closed today and until Lusaka, so you can't use that for now. We'll keep an eye on things and how they open up. We'll let you know. Also, let us know if you get stuck somewhere. SpiceFM KE on Twitter. Text 40127.
This is the Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latif, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is the Situation Room. The only
2
way to
minutes after
start
7.
your
This is
day.
Kenya's biggest conversation, the Situation Room. Thank you very much for joining us in the second hour of the show. We're here until 10 a.m. and we're now live on KTN Home, in addition to being live on SpiceFM and live streaming the show on SpiceFM KE, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. In the room is Eric Latif, CT Muga, and Ndu, of course. CT, welcome back once again to those that had not seen you for 2 days. What was it?
The proverb for today? Being a leader is like a borrowed garment.
Being a leader is like a borrowed garment.
This is a Ugandan saying.
Being a leader is like a borrowed garment. It's not yours.
Essentially, if you're a leader, your nickname is borrowed garment.
But you have to give it back at some point. You're not there permanently.
It doesn't matter how long it has been lent to you for, it is borrowed and you have to give it back at some point or the other.
It's not yours.
No.
It don't belong to you.
No, it isn't. It never did. No matter how well it fits you, no matter how good it looks on you, no matter how you've gotten used to it, it isn't yours. It has to be given back.
Okay. Suruali ya kuazima haisitiri matako. Doesn't sit.
Yes, it reminds me of an ancient song in the days I was youthful, albeit young. I sent gentleman, Tanzanian gentleman, Mbarak Mwishe. Yes. Mali ya mwenzio sio mali yako ya kujivunia. That was a song. Yes.
Ya mwenzio si yako ya
Si yako
kujivunia.
ya kujivunia. Yes.
Always keep that in mind.
Keep the perspective in check.
It's not yours.
No, it's not yours.
All right. Ndu. So we are celebrating the end of the What is that?
Okay, so Francophone Days is celebrated on the 20th of March every year. And so then you have Francophone Week, which basically gives an opportunity to celebrate the French language and culture around the world. And so it's a week of several functions, different markers for the celebratory period. And what it does is it provides an opportunity for French speakers around the world to celebrate the French language in all its diversity. And so we're still, of course, looking at former colonies of France. And we also understand that French is just not spoken in France, but other countries in the world as well, other European countries having French as their national language. And so it's a week where across the world, those who speak French and those who practice its culture have an opportunity to celebrate the diverse elements of the language and the culture. And so we're coming to the end of that this week and having an opportunity to look at details of what it really is about and what there is to continually celebrate about the language and its culture and also its far-reaching effects around the globe.
Well, that there's something to celebrate is clear. And that the French had colonies all across the world is clear. And that for a long time and for many places, even as we currently speak, it is a preferred language of trade. However, when you compare it with other languages that have in the recent past become significant, for instance, Mandarin or even Spanish, you will find, for instance, that there are very, very many Americans who not have learned, speak Mandarin fluently, speak Spanish fluently. So the question that begs to be asked is, given the importance that this language must have, for the native speakers and those who over time, through assimilation and through influence, have acquired the language, what is it that has been done to position this language rightfully and to bring about the influence that this language would bring? I mean, from a lay perspective as a Kenyan, if I have a business and I hope to be intercontinental, talking about just the African continent, and I want to do business with the certain parts of the western part of this continent, it would be in my interest to actually understand French. Yes. But the question I'm asking, what are these things that the native speakers have done to ensure that their language takes that central position, that languages like English, which we're speaking now, and others have taken, so that they are part of the influence that brings about the results that they desire.
And why is it important then to also celebrate this Francophone week?
Well, I think you look at what the president of France did, for example, Macron decided. Because look, I think when you look at the preservation of language, when you're coming about the preservation of language, there's the danger that that language will become extinct, that the language and its culture will leave. So when you look at practices that bring about the preservation of any language, it is so that that just does not happen, that it doesn't disappear, and that the different tenets of that culture just don't get, swallowed up by anything else. So by the time you see them celebrating and commemorating, it's not because, they've had a fancy old time, but that they don't want the language to disappear. And so they're going to do everything that they can to continue to celebrate it and make sure that it continues to permeate culture around the world. So why is it important to celebrate it? Because they don't want it to die. They want it to be preserved.
So perhaps these things that they have done to maintain it is what our guests will be telling us about, won't they?
Absolutely.
Among other things, of course.
Yeah, sure.
Yes.
So, so there's a significant part of the continent that still continues to speak French. And if you go to French West Africa, for example, and you've had the opportunity to be to France, you will be able to draw significant parallels between how the culture is practiced and what still continues in France today, for example, or even countries like Belgium, certain parts of Switzerland, that they still... in West Africa, in a lot of countries, the influence is extremely heavy. From language to practice to culture, extremely heavy.
What I've always found interesting is whenever we talk about these countries, we focus on Europe. Canada is bilingual.
It is.
Yes, and there's a very strong French presence. Is it that I read literature that does not include the Canadians, or is it that the Canadians are never really part of this discussion?
They are, but the thing is that the division that you see between French and English is comparatively, the English-speaking part of Canada is significantly larger than the French-speaking, whereby you have two territories in Canada that are French-speaking, the rest are English. So, it's much smaller than anywhere else.
But does that mean it's less significant just because it covers a smaller population?
To them, yes.
I see. Politically speaking, that is?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's bring in the French ambassador to Kenya, and her name is Aline Costa-Menager. She joins us on the line. We'll be having her on video shortly. Good morning, Madam Ambassador.
Bonjour.
Bonjour. Now that it's Francophone, right?
now you're learning French with me.
He's learning French.
But madam, we will not go beyond bonjour. if we really make a
not?
sterling effort, we may say merci. And then I think we'll be done.
We end it there.
Your accent is perfect.
You're very kind. Thank you.
So, Madam Ambassador, just tell us about the Francophone Week and what's been happening in the Francophone Week in terms of how have you, especially being the ambassador to Kenya, how have you and the other countries that speak French been celebrating in the country?
Thank you for organizing this live debate with my colleagues, who are in line also. The Francophonie is a big family. It's literally Francophonie means those who speak French, but it's also a community, an organization, what we call the Organisation de la Francophonie, who regroup those Francophone countries. Indeed, you mentioned some of them. Indeed, a lot are in Africa. We count 28 African countries, among them very close neighbor to Kenya. And also, as you mentioned, we have in Europe countries like Belgium, Switzerland, where French is an official language, which shares with other languages. You also mentioned Canada. Indeed, in Canada, Quebec is a Francophone area and is very strongly attached to its Francophone culture. What I would say is on all continents you find, because of historical reasons, Francophone and the language itself has evolved, and each country has its own way to speak French, accent. It's part of the culture. that's what I would like to insist on. Your journalist mentioned preserving language. Indeed, the diversity of language, preserving language, is about identity, is about culture, is about arts. And when it comes to French, indeed, we are not at the stage that we have to preserve our language. We have 500 to 800 million French-speaking people in the world, and it's a booming language for many reasons, also because Africa is a lively continent. But it's about promoting our language, promoting our culture, promoting a world where diversity remains. And I would rather say preserving diversity.
So it goes beyond language. It's also about culture and everything else.
Indeed, indeed.
Why is it important? I can understand it from I can see very clearly from the preservation of language. I mean, just like you said, different places in the world speak French differently. But then why is the preservation of French culture specifically important outside of France?
I mean, French does not belong to France. Indeed, it started in France and in the Francophone area in Europe. But for historical reasons, like English, like Spanish, like Portuguese, it has spread around the world, historically speaking. And it's important for us to preserve this dimension. And indeed, a world where everybody would speak a poor common language would be very boring. Let's put it like this.
Madam Ambassador, let me ask you this question. What are the efforts that you would say have been made to get more people, say within Kenya, to actually speak the French language?
So I would like also to insist on this Francophonie Day. We don't work alone. I work with all my colleagues here who are part of the Francophonie. I would like to mention indeed Belgium, Switzerland, Canada, and also some of our African friends. And we have also Egypt, which is a big country, which is not at the start Francophone as such, but where there is a strong tradition of Francophonie. And our colleague from Egypt in Kenya is a good example of that. He's a perfect Francophone. I don't know if they are with us today because it was supposed to be a group debate, and I'm not the only one to speak. When it comes to the Francophonie manifestation, what I would like to say, we work together to kind of build a program where the language in this plays a big role. So it includes the schools, it includes the Alliance Française, it includes debate on live in French, but it also includes culture. And this year we chose to put some emphasis on animation, cinema, film of animation. And there is a program that you can find actually on our site, which is a very interesting one. And indeed, we are very glad that a lot of our Kenyan friends were able to join this program, and it includes here completely the Kenyans.
Right. Indeed, as you said, Madam Ambassador, yes, we are going to have a conversation with you, the French ambassador. We're also joined by Neocolonialism. He's the ambassador of Belgium. Later on, we'll have a conversation as well with the Egyptian ambassador to Kenya, Khalid Al-Abiad, and the Swiss ambassador to Kenya, Patrick Egloff. Now we have Ambassador Nihon on the line with us. Ambassador, just like your colleague, the French ambassador, has said, there are many countries in Europe and in the world that speak French, and yours is among those that has been celebrating this Francophonie week. So just the same question that CT was asking, what is it that has been made by countries such as yourself and France and the others to spread the knowledge of the language of French in Kenya?
Well, my country is a slightly different position as France. My country is officially trilingual. So we have three national languages, which are actually Dutch, French, and German. The majority of people in my country speak Dutch. Almost 60% of the people in Belgium speak Dutch. Almost, I would say, 40% of the people speak French in Belgium, and you have a tiny I would say 1% speak German. Actually, Belgium is geographically situated between France, Germany, and the Netherlands, and that explains why we have such a diverse linguistic landscape.
Yeah.
So we are a federal state with a very high degree of devolution. And actually, everything that has to do with culture and education and language is in the hands of what we call our communities, and not in the hands of the federal state. Hence, this is the reason why Belgium, being a trilingual country, is of course not as such, I would say, promoting French, because we would have to promote the three languages, but every one of our communities is actually promoting one's own language. And that is why in the Organisation Internationale de la Francophonie, the International Organization of Francophonie, which we will be talking later, I suppose, Belgium is not only a member of, but also what we call Wallonia Brussels, which are the two main entities in Belgium who speak French. So we don't have a specific program as such to promote French in Kenya, but we, of course, like other countries like France, Switzerland, and so on, we are very much part of this cultural effort to promote diversity, because as you know, English is a bit the language that is a bit stifling the diversity in the world. You know, today everybody has to speak English. It's a must, which is right. But at the same time, it's very important to promote other international languages like French, but like Spanish and others.
Definitely, if we're looking at former French colonies, this is you, Madam Ambassador. Definitely, I can see how this would help in the proliferation of French and its culture around the world. Do you depend on former French colonies to help out with this? If we're looking at specifically the African continent, for example, to continue to push the French language and its culture, against the backdrop that several countries might be looking towards their own nationalism, state sovereignty, and things like that. Do you still depend on them to be able to push this celebration, for example, the preservation of culture and language, specifically of French?
Sure that the word depends is the right word. We form a community. Indeed, French is part of their history. It's also, for many of them, their official language. It's also a lingua franca, because, as you know, in some of these countries, there is not only one local language, but many of them. And what we find is that where the French is very lively, actually, is where there are a multiplicity of languages, which doesn't help people to really communicate. But no, French belongs to them. They've taken it up. They had their own way to put. I spent at least 15 years of my career in Africa, and I can tell the difference between the French as it is spoken in Cameroon or in Congo or in Benin. There are differences. It's also about culture, as I said, and culture is strictly meddled with languages, and so new words appear, new way, and it's part of the interest of these communities to be together and to reinforce our respective cultures. Indeed, the bigger numbers are in Africa, Francophone Africa, but not only. Everybody has its space in this Francophone community. You mentioned Canada. Quebec is a very lively area for French speaking, for culture, for cinema, songs, and so it's not about the numbers or a kind of dependence, and we want to make big figures. It's about promoting culture together, interacting together on our respective cultures. We are not at the same situation when it comes to French. Indeed, the Belgian Ambassador explained it very well, and it's also part of our community. It's common language, but different ways.
That is true, but if I were to refer this question to the Belgian Ambassador, Your Excellency, it is true, and I like the idea of the three languages. It's good information. However, if I were to look at the linguistic influence in the colonies that Belgium had, French seems to have taken the front row. If I look at Belgian Congo, as it was called then, which is actually 76 times the size of actually Belgium itself, the language, one doesn't hear of any German language influence. One doesn't hear, if you got Rwanda, which was then Rwanda-Urundi, which was Rwanda and Burundi, again, it's the French language. So why was this preference for the French language when, as you say, it's only 40% of the linguistic capacity that the country has?
Well, I mean, my background is historian, and I don't know if the listeners of SpiceFM have some patience to listen to a long explanation. So I'm going to make a very long story short. You have to know that when Belgium was created and broke away with the revolution from the Netherlands, this country was established with only one national language, one language in the administration, and that was French. Why? Because at that time, the elite would speak French, and for almost a century, French was really the dominant language until what we call the Flemish movement. Some intellectual in the north of the country said, no, that's not right. In the northern part of the country, we have dialects, Flemish dialects that look alike like Dutch, and we want at least this culture to be recognized. And there was a whole cultural fight, endeavor to see actually Dutch being recognized as a second language of Belgium, which is now today the first, because the demographics makes that in the northern part of the country, they're more populous than in the southern part. In the southern part, we had other dialects, Walloon dialects, which were coming from the Latin, and actually people were assimilated to French. So at the moment of the colonization of the Congo, the main language of administration was French, even though the Dutch was seeping into the Belgian system. But this is why French was imposed as a language of administration in the Congo. And now I would like to turn to the future and say now, in echo of what the French ambassador said, now this is what these countries make out of it. It's just like in Kenya, where English was imposed on the native languages. I'm always very amazed by the linguistical skills of the Kenyans, who always speak their own mother tongue, Swahili, and then English. And this is what English is. This is what you make it. As far as Kenya is concerned, you adopted it completely. And I think in Congo, I think they largely adopted it. And now it's up to them to see what they want to make out of it and what they want to have as a place in the Francophonie.
Time for us to take a break, and we'll continue the conversation with the French ambassador, Aline Costa-Ménager, and also we'll be joined after this break by Khalid Al-Abiad. He's the Egyptian ambassador to Kenya. Ambassador Neocolonialism, thank you very much for joining us, and we'll hope to catch up with you again shortly.
Thank you.
26 minutes after 7, this is Kenya's biggest conversation, The Situation Room. Keep it right here. We'll be back on SpiceFM, KTN Home, and online.
24/7 around the world, non-stop. This is Spice FM.
Whenever I shop, I simply tap.
At the fuel station, I just tap.
After enjoying my meal, I simply tap.
Everywhere I go, I just tap.
Tap.
Kenyans have discovered the fast, easy, and safe contactless way to pay. You only have to tap using your app's debit or credit card.
Tap.
Tap.
Apply for your contactless APSA card today. Simply SMS the words tap and go to 22268 today. That's Africanacity. That's APSA. Daily and transaction limits along with terms and conditions apply. APSA Bank PLC is regulated by the Central Bank of Kenya.
It's time to answer questions that are worthwhile. The Big Quiz Show is here. Register to play from the comfort of your home by SMSing the word join to 23774. Then watch the live show on KTN every Sunday from 8 p.m. where you could have a chance to win a melee. The fastest and most accurate answers are guaranteed to win. The Big Quiz Show, Sundays at 8 p.m. only on KTN.
24/7 around the world, non-stop. This is Spice FM.
Sarit, your city, is inviting you for an Easter celebration like no other. Come over with your family and loved ones from the 2nd to the 5th of April and enjoy a special Easter-themed shopping experience with special mall deco, the Easter Village, Sana art display for the lovers of art. Enjoy unlimited live performances. Don't forget to check out the Easter Fair where you can get great deals and offers. All this and more only at Sarit, your city. All COVID-19 protocols set by the Ministry of Health shall be observed.
Are you a wholesale buyer of farm produce looking for constant and reliable supply of produce? Introducing Vuna, the wholesale marketplace for fresh produce. A joint project by Standard Group's Farm Kenya in partnership with Agin. With the Vuna Market, you can say goodbye to uncertainties of procuring produce in bulk. Vuna Market connects wholesale buyers to a network of verified farmers working through reliable bulking centers countrywide with the benefit of standard weights, measures, and packaging, as well as transparent pricing for agricultural commodities that can be viewed at www.vuna.co.ke. Download the Vuna app for free today from the Google Play Store to have constant access to a consistent and transparent marketplace at the palm of your hand. And if you are a farmer looking to supply your produce at competitive prices, you can get in touch with the closest bulking center near you by emailing us on farmkenya@standardmedia.co.ke. Farm Kenya, working to secure your growth.
All right, sunny conditions in Nairobi this morning at 17, warming up to highs of 28 today. We'll see highs of 27 in Nyeri. It's 11 and sunny right now. It's sunny in Nakuru as well at 14, highs of 28 and lows of 12. Sunny conditions in Eldoret at 11, going to highs of 27 today. 31 will be the high recorded in Kisumu, currently sunny at 20. 18 degrees rather in Kakamega, and sunny, highs of 33 today. Mostly sunny conditions around the country. Mombasa also show forth at 26 right now, going to highs of 33. 33 will also be the high in Malindi. Coming out of Kenya in Kampala, 19 degrees, going to highs of 28 today. Also sunny conditions, and it's sunny in Dar es Salaam at 25, highs of 32 and lows of 26. It's raining in Johannesburg, however, at 14. It'll go to highs of 19 today. 30 will be the high in Lagos, where it continues to rain at 25. It's also raining in Kinshasa at 23. We'll see highs of 29 coming down to lows of 23.
Spice FM. Spice up your life.
All right, so
Traffic.
looking at traffic and how it's built up till now, we still see some traffic on Mombasa Road in and outbound, interestingly enough. Coming to the Nyeri Stadium roundabouts, headed into the city, it's going to take some time. It's piled up through to Westlands. Inbound also, as you get to the roundabout at the University Way, it slows down, but it will not be too bad. There were 2 accidents on Wayaki Way this morning, slowed things down considerably. Folks turning around to use James Kishoro to get into the city. You can still use the Red Hill bypass, so let's look at that one carefully. Remember, trying to get towards Lusaka Bunyala Road, you can't use that right now. It's been closed off as the construction has affected that. It's not happening. Don't use that route. Still some construction also going on Likoni Road in industrial area, and so that also means that you can't use that road till now. Hopefully that'll be sorted out. There's been an accident on the southern bypass towards Langata before the bridge, so watch out for that one, yet to be cleared out, and it's slowing things down considerably. So some pockets here and there. Let's be careful. Talk to us if you need to. SpiceFMKE on Twitter. Text on 40127, and let's keep things moving this Thursday.
Are you ready? Okay.
Spice FM. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4.
This is Kenya's biggest conversation, the Situation Room, marking the end of the Francophone week, in which the countries that speak and use the French culture, and maybe have adopted in some ways the French culture, have just been looking back and celebrating this. We have on the line with us Ambassador Aline Costa-Menager. She's the French ambassador to Kenya. We've been having a conversation with the Belgian ambassador to Kenya, Neocolonialism. He's dropped off. Now we have a conversation joining Madam Ambassador from the French is Khalid Al-Abiad, the Egyptian ambassador to the country. Good morning, Ambassador Abiad.
Yes, good morning. How are you?
Very well, thank you. And thank you very much for joining us. On the line is also Aline Costa-Menager, the French ambassador to the country.
Yes. Good morning, Ambassador.
Now, Ambassador Khalid, what is it that connects the Egyptians to the French language and culture?
Oh, yeah, actually, the connection between Egypt and the French language and culture, I think it goes way back to the Napoleon campaign, the French campaign led by Napoleon in 1798, if I still remember correctly. When Napoleon came to Egypt, many French jurists, engineers, Egyptologists, they accompanied the campaign actually, and most of them they stayed after he left. Most of them with those French, with the many European nationals, Italians, they all spoke at that time the French language. Afterwards, the elite, the Egyptian elite, and many of the middle class in Egypt started sending their children to French schools to learn French, and even after. Most of the international community or the foreigners left Egypt in the 50s and the 60s, the French stayed, the French language stayed. We started having more schools. Now we have even more universities. I graduated from political science, economics and political science. They have French section. Mm-hmm. We have the French University. Alexandria hosts the Francophone University, Senghor University. The first Secretary General of the Francophonie was an Egyptian, the late Dr. Boutros Ghali. So it goes way, and it's not only that we were influenced by the French culture, even in our Arabic language, like the slang language, you have some French words until now. We say territoire, you say café, like many of the French words became part of like maybe our daily language. And we also, I think we influenced the French to a certain extent culture. You see like the French fascination, for example, by the Egyptology. We influenced and we were influenced. We influenced and we were influenced at the same time, I can say so.
If one were to ask a question, Your Excellency, is what percentage of the Egyptian population actually speak the French language?
Well, it's hard to tell. Actually, I was looking at the figures. I think the last figure that we have is in 2010, around 2.8 million Egyptians they speak French. But of course, this is it. I'm sure it's. I think it can be a little bit more than that. For example, in my family itself. My mom is a Francophone, my aunt is a Francophone, my wife is a Francophone. Maybe I'm the only one who studied in an English school, but like still, it's everywhere. It's Egyptian TV. You have French channels, but like the last figure that we have is 2.8 in 2010.
So what I'm getting at is actually the influence, because language is accompanied by the presence of a nation. Now, if I were to look at the influence, would you say, in terms of just anecdotally speaking, of the trade partners that Egypt has, where does France fall in?
Yeah, in terms of course, we have excellent ties with France in terms of and not only trends, in terms of international cooperation. I think even military cooperation. We have excellent ties with them. But like again, I think the most fascinating, the most interesting is really the culture relation between both countries and how we both look at each other's. This is the beauty of it, in my point of view.
If you can go back to you, Madam Ambassador, looking at what resulted in going back to African countries, and I'm looking at countries of Côte d'Ivoire, I'm looking at Senegal, Gabon, Congo, DR Congo, and such other countries. What resulted in the adoption of this culture was the dominance that came about by colonialism. And so they picked up this because of the fact that that was the culture they brought about by country. Now, if we look at the celebration of this language in today, is it an extension of wanting to make sure that France and its language still remain dominant around the world?
Thank you for your question. I think it should have to be asked to these countries how they feel about it. As we said, it's mainly for historical reason, and colonization is part of the history. That French language is now shared by a lot of African countries. I mentioned that 28 out of 88 countries of the Organization of the Francophone are African. But I mean, now it's their language. Like English is a Kenyan language. There's not much difference when it comes to that. And French is coming with culture. It's obvious, and this culture is also part of the heritage of these countries, and they've taken it up as their own, and now they're developing their own literature in French. Indeed, there is the big example of Senghor in Senegal, who was a member of the Académie Française because of its writings, poems, and beautiful writings. But there is a more recent writer. It's a very lively community, cultural community. And as I said, they mix their own culture, native culture, and the language, and it's produced something special, which is also part of this Francophone community. So that's a fact. And now we are not imposing anything about speaking French, but we are taking benefit from the fact that there is this community of countries having French in common and sharing a taste and an appetite for culture, and it makes a strong link with France, and as the Egyptian ambassador explained. That's how we can put it. In this respect, it's not that much different from the English in the former colonial empire. What is new is that when we speak of the Organisation de la Francophonie, it's now a big organization which regroups these countries having the French language as an official language, but also other countries who have a tradition with the French language, who can become a member or an observer. And it's more than language itself. I said it's about culture, but it's also about shared values, promoting peace, democracy, and human rights, supporting education, training, higher education and research, and indeed developing economic cooperation for sustainable development, because in many areas, French is a language for trade. I must say that from a Kenyan point of view, I would consider this as an important fact. You have big neighbors. We mentioned DRC, Congo, who are French-speaking countries, and it may help to enforce your trade relationships and your political links with these countries around you, which are, for at least three of them, part of the East African community. And by the way, French has become an East African community. It might help for Kenyan to open to French. And I must say it's already a fact that a lot of Kenyan learn French. And there is probably more to develop in this respect.
Madam Ambassador, I want to move a little from the niceties of culture and go to the niceties of commerce that are often propelled by our politics. Would you say, for instance, that if you look at the global landscape of politics and influence, now back to Kenya, would you say that France has done enough or are doing enough in Kenya and on this continent to ensure that through the language and the culture that it comes with, are gaining or are propping themselves to gain a greater foothold on this particular continent? And I'm asking, is what they're doing enough?
I mean, I can answer that we never do enough when it comes to developing French. But in Kenya, we have a very old presence when it comes to French. We celebrated last year the 60th anniversary of the Alliance Française, which is a well-known institution, not only to learn French, but also it's a cultural place where people share their cultures and their art. And Kenyans are very attached to this Alliance Française. We are also working with the schools. The idea is that to teach French, you need to have a good level of French, indeed, and to improve your skills. And we are training the teachers. We have now more than 500 Kenyan public institutions teaching French. I would like to say this is a success story. We even have some of them teaching French from the primary school, which is a good way to proceed, because the younger you are, the more able you are to catch language. We can say that French is the first foreign language taught in Kenya with 40,000 learners. Mm-hmm. And as an example, it's the only foreign language represented at the Kenyan National Drama Festival, which is a good sign of its liveliness and the interest Kenyans show to France. Indeed, we also have the Lycée Français Denis Diderot, who is welcoming 670 students from 54 nationalities. 15% of them are Kenyan. Why is it so diverse? It's also because Kenya is welcoming one of the only UN organization seats outside of the developed world. I mean, the UNEP and also many regional office of UN institution. And French is a key language for the UN. Yeah. And you have a lot of diversity of UN staff, and a lot of them are Francophone, and they are part also of this Francophone week indeed.
Tuning in right now into SpiceFM, KTN Home or online, we're having a conversation marking the end of the Francophone week, which it brings together the countries that speak and practice their French culture in one way or the other, members of the Francophonie, Organisation de la Francophonie, right? 28 African countries are part of this. One of them is Egypt, and our Egyptian ambassador Khalid Al Abyad is on the line alongside French ambassador to Kenya, Aline Costa-Menager. Coming back to you, Ambassador Khalid, you talked about the kind of influence that the French culture and language has had on the Egyptian people, and you said we have also influenced others. And I'm just thought of that and looking at the Egyptian civilization, one of the very old civilizations, you have been there for very many years. If you look at that and other civilizations around Africa, and then you compare with the other civilizations that have come into African continent, look at now, for example, the languages, the French, the English, they came, we speak English, we speak French. Not many countries would speak of the native Egyptian languages. What would you say this has happened, especially to the native African civilizations?
What happened is like the influence that we had with the French. I think it also has to do that the interest of French campaign in Egypt was a little bit different. I think at that time the interest was to look into more into history, to influence and not to stay for a very long time. It was a campaign that it has its geopolitical reasons. While in Africa, I think it was a bit different. Colonization in Africa, or it stayed for a long time. I think this is the main difference between what happened in Egypt and what happened in other African countries.
You know, when one talks of colonization, I think part of the reason why the topic becomes sensitive is one focuses perhaps on what we refer to as the negative aspects of colonization. But if you look at globalization as it's currently presented, there is an advantage in having influence from other parts of the world because it enables you to cope with whatever else is happening in the world. There's a question I've been asking, and I'm going back to it again. When you look at the relationship that Kenya has with Egypt, it's a very cordial relationship and it's a very long-standing relationship. If you look at the cultural influences and the steps that have been taken, I would say that they are monumental. Now, the question I'm asking is, apart from what you have mentioned, what else do you think that those who represent the French language and the French culture could do to enhance not just their position in Europe, but also to ensure that the French language is further integrated within the society of Egypt?
I'm sorry, I didn't really get what you mean by this. Can you please, if you can come again?
Yes, I can. I can. What I'm saying is, you say 2.8 million people speak the French language in Egypt. Okay, what is the population of Egypt?
Yeah, around 100 million.
Precisely. It's a significant number, but small. Now, wouldn't it be a good thing for the French to have more people in Egypt speaking French? And I'm asking you, as an Egyptian and as the ambassador to Kenya, what do you think the French could do to ensure that they enhance the presence of their culture and their language in your country? That's what I'm asking.
Okay. Yeah, I know. No, but actually, what they're doing, it's pretty much fine. I mean, you don't have a huge amount or a big number of people to maintain or to maintain an influence or to leave the necessary impact. I mean, because it has to do with, I think, also the quality, not the quantity. It means where is your influence in which aspects of life, who are started. But for example, Egypt, it's true, 2.8 million from 100 million, but like don't forget as well that our native language is Arabic. And even though the number seems to be not that big, but the influence, it's quite substantial. And again, in the positive side, in the positive sense, I won't say like in general, the diversity, linguistic diversity in general, whether in Africa or everywhere. And I think it's even more important in Africa, in our region, because it's in our area, in our continent, where we suffer from extreme ideas, from terrorists. And the extreme ideas, as a matter of fact, it's due to lack of understanding the other. And linguistic diversity, it helps to understand the other. It helps to be more open to other cultures. and this actually will be at the end of the day it will be very useful for our communities and our countries.
How does it help, Ambassador Khalid? How does it help when you're looking at then, looking at a country and then moving forward in terms of development? How then does the invitation of another culture and another country and their language contribute towards, development in Egypt, for example?
Okay, I'll tell you something. This is out of my own personal experience. For example, I even though I'm an English-speaking person, my first post as a diplomat was in France. And, I had, let's say, the ear for the French language because I had my mom's family, my wife, they all speak French. But, again, I was not a French-speaking person. And I went there and I said, okay, I took a decision. It's the only way to be able to do my job properly, actually, even as a diplomat, I need to understand the language, to understand the culture. Speaking in French, and understanding French, understanding the French jokes even, helped me even in my work, helped me in how I process professionally, how I do my work, how I even write my reports. It's very important, and it's the same when you have culture diversity. Or linguistic diversity actually will lead to cultural diversity, and this will open new venues for you. You will be able to think differently instead of thinking in a one-way stream.
Absolutely, makes sense.
We continue the conversation with the ambassadors, and the ambassador to France is Aline Couste-Menager. She's on the line with us, as well as the Egyptian ambassador to Kenya, Khalid Al-Abiad. We want to take a break at this point, and we'll continue the conversation with the French ambassador into the next hour, because we'll also be joined by the Swiss ambassador to Kenya, Patrick Egloff. Ambassador Khalid Al-Abiad, thank you very much for joining us this morning.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency.
Time for a quick break on KTN Home. Remember, this is Kenya's biggest conversation. We are live on KTN Home, on SpiceFM, and online at 5 minutes to 8. Keep it right here. We'll be back shortly.
87.9 Spice FM, Mombasa. This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life. Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings.
All right, the conversation continues with
94.4 Spice.
We have with us on the line Ambassador Aline Couste-Menager. She is the French ambassador to Kenya. Shortly, we'll be joined by Patrick Egloff, the Swiss ambassador to Kenya. We're talking about the Francophone Week, which is just coming to a conclusion today, looking back at how it has been celebrated. And as we talk about this, we look at, for example, these 28 African countries that are members of the Francophone organization and what they have done over the years in terms of their relationship with the French culture, with the French language, even going to a great extent to the French currency as well. And we saw last year a number of countries, I actually also coming into this year, a number of countries in West Africa saying they'd like to sort of start reducing their influence that their currency would have on Paris and trying to seek independence. But so many years and such appearing to be a lot of resistance from the French government back in Paris. Ambassador, if you look at that kind of move, and if you look at the number of years that it's taken, for example, for those West African countries that are still reliant on sort of the French central bank, is that advancement of culture, or is that neocolonialism?
I must say it's a little bit another conversation. Indeed, because of the history, there are strong links, economic links, social links with France. And the economy is one, and it's natural. The same with Kenya and the UK. You have stronger economic and trade links. You have companies who are based here in Kenya. When it comes to the currency, it was a choice of it was a collective choice actually from the African countries to kind of peg their money to the franc and then later on to the euro. And actually, it was a situation where there was some support from the French bank to do the stability of their currency. It was a choice. I mean, it's not a dictated choice. They can consider the benefit of being outside this currency zone. A lot has been done on this. I'm sorry, I'm not a specialist. I didn't know that language would take us to the currencies. But they are free to make another choice. And actually, that's what Guinea, for example, made at the independence. She chose not to be part of the French franc zone. And indeed, there are evolutions, and they are welcome. But France will be happy to support, as it does with its development policy or all these countries. I understand that the Kenyan shilling is very much linked to US dollars, and it's not an issue. It's an economic choice, which may be good for the country because it's also good for the countries to have a stable currency, more or less. But I think it's another debate. I'm sorry, I wouldn't put it like a kind of imposing to those countries, as I said.
But you've actually done a very good job of answering it, Madam Ambassador, because what you say is actually true. It's just, if I may just add on to what my colleague was actually seeking. You see, when you talk about relationships, bilateral relationships, and relationship that countries have with each other, at the end of the day, there is what we say in public and there is the reality of the relationships. If a country is a former colonial power, they of necessity have a relationship with a country that they colonized. Now, then with independence comes what those who are then independent consider to be what is in their interest, and there is what is perceived to be in their interest by the country that colonized them. So now it's bringing these interests together that brings about these debates. The economics, the businesses, and all those things come into discussion, but its interests, are they well balanced? That really is the question that is being asked. And I think you've responded well. Thank you.
Indeed. Let's take a break now at this point. Coming up to 8 o'clock, let's see what's happening on the roads and then continue the conversation. Good morning.
.5 Spice FM, Kisumu. Traffic.
All right, been given all clear on Thika Road this morning all the way to Pangani. Not much of an issue there today, and it's flowing actually very well. Since school closed, Mombasa Road hasn't given us the headaches that it usually does. From Syokimau, Mlolongo area, that's usually most affected. That's where we're having a bit of a hold up right now. But then going past that and then past General Motors, not too bad. Anything is going to hold it up. It's the current construction that's going on, but aside from that, it's not an issue. We still see some problems right on the Lakoni interchange. As you then get to the southern bypass, it's going to be held up for some time. That accident that happened earlier has been cleared up, so it's easier to move along. Coming out of Westlands, it's a mess this morning. Very, very slow because of the accidents that took place earlier. We still have some traffic there. All right, so little pockets around the city. Looking into Mombasa, traffic is flowing actually very well through and going on west into Nakuru and outbound. It looks good, guys, in and out of the town as well. Let's talk in a bit and see how it looks like in your neck of the woods. SpiceFM KE on Twitter if you need to, or 40127 via text.
This is the Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latif, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is the Situation Room, the only way to
It's
start
2.5
your
minutes
day.
after 8. This is Kenya's biggest conversation, the Situation Room. Still having a conversation about the end of the Francophone week. In the studio with you is Eric Latif, Nduoko, C.T. Muga, and on the line is Ambassador Aline Costa-Menager. She is the French ambassador to Kenya, and joining us shortly is Deputy Ambassador of Switzerland to Kenya, Burundi, Rwanda, Somalia, and Uganda, Patrick Egloff. But before that, C.T. Muga, today's proverb.
Right. Being a leader is like a borrowed garment.
Being a leader is like a borrowed garment.
Yes. It's a Ugandan proverb.
Not you, not yours.
No. I
Doesn't
wish-
belong.
You have no idea how often I wish to pepper some of these proverbs and add a few of my thoughts. But then they wouldn't be African proverbs. They would be C.T. Muga proverbs.
They would be like
C.T. Muga, the
C.T.'s
African.
fables.
Yes,
like
exactly.
Aesop's fable.
Yes, and that's really not the purpose of this. Is to talk about what other people and other communities and other experiences have, should we say, amalgam themselves into proverbs.
Right.
It's not my view.
Very true. Still looking at the conversation about the French language, culture, and everything Francophonie. And also joining us now on the line is the Deputy Ambassador of Switzerland to Kenya, Burundi, Rwanda, Somalia, and Uganda, Patrick Egloff. Good morning.
Good morning to everybody. Good morning to the listeners, Madam Ambassador. I'm very happy to join you call.
Good morning.
Thank you very much. Mr. Ambassador, let's just jump right into the deep end. What percentage of the Swiss community are French or speak French?
If I may start first with a greeting. My ambassador would have loved to be in the Situation Room, but he's traveling to Burundi. He's the whole week in Burundi. He was able to present his credentials or his accreditation to the president of Burundi, and of course he speaks French the whole week in Burundi. Now, in Switzerland, we have about 2 million people having French as their mother tongue, and this represents about 25% or a quarter of the Swiss population speak French.
Excellent. So, what then would you say, in comparison to other languages that are spoken, is the influence of the French language and the French culture in Switzerland?
So the other languages that are spoken in Switzerland, I don't know whether you see it in the backdrop, like Belgium, we're a multilingual country. We speak German, about 2/3 of the Swiss population. We speak Italian, about 8%, French, a quarter of the population, and we speak Romansh. That's very few people speak it in very mountainous areas in the Swiss Alps. So we're not only a multilingual, but also a multicultural country. And what brings this with French culture to Switzerland? I would say those who have been to Switzerland and those who know a bit of Swiss cuisine, the first thing that comes to mind is cheese. The fondue, it's called fondue because it stems from the Swiss-French part and from the Alps. The same with the raclette. I don't know whether you know raclette. Have you ever eaten raclette?
You would need to explain it to us. Is it a living organism or is it?
There are many bacteria because it's cheese.
It's cheese, right?
Okay.
And we're very proud. We're very proud of our very good Swiss wine, and big part of it is grown and cultivated in the French-speaking area of Switzerland, on the shores of the Lake of Geneva and in the Netherlands.
But like Belgium, you're also known for your chocolate.
We're also known for our chocolates, and there are big chocolate factories in the Swiss French part, but there are also chocolate factories in the Swiss German part. So we're a chocolate country, and chocolate is produced all over, also in the Swiss Italian part.
I'm interested to know that. So you have multilingual, multicultural influences in Switzerland. How have you been able to create a balance within the country that can actually be done in other parts? Because I'll give you an example. If you went to Dakar, for example, and you've been to Paris, you can draw very many parallels, very many similarities. And until and unless you left Dakar and went to other parts of Senegal, you would not know that you were living outside of Paris. So how have you then, as a country, Switzerland, for example, been able to maintain that balance while being able to celebrate the individual cultures and languages that make up Switzerland?
This is a very interesting question. It allows me to explain you a little bit of the Swiss system. First of all, for those who do not know where Switzerland is situated in Europe, Switzerland is situated in the core, in the heart of Europe. Our neighboring countries are big countries, are the big European powers: Germany, France, and Italy. That's why we have those three languages spoken in Switzerland. Switzerland became independent more than 700 years ago. And it was always very important for the Swiss to be sovereign. And to put it maybe a bit bluntly, the Swiss Germans didn't want to be part of big Germany, the Swiss French didn't want to be part of big France, and the Swiss Italians didn't want to be part of Italy. So they wanted to have something on their own, which they called Switzerland. And this very much impacted the Swiss political system. So we have very important minority rights protection mechanism in the Swiss system. For instance, in government, in administration, the three languages, Italian, French, and German, are equivalent. Everybody can speak in his own language. We have many meetings, also at the embassy. Our Swiss-French colleagues speak in French, and the Swiss-German replies in Germany. And our government, for instance, we have 7 ministers, and it's always important to have a good mix also from different languages. So currently, out of the 7 ministers, one is one has Italian as mother tongue, 2 have French, 3 have French as mother tongue, 2 have French as mother tongue, and 4 have German as mother tongue. All Swiss laws are published, and everything officially communicated by the government is published in the 3 languages. So that's how we, on the one hand, respect the different languages and how we cultivate it.
So if we were talking, you said 25% of the people in Switzerland speak French. Which of the languages and the countries they represent have a bigger influence on the Swiss community? I know you're going to tell me it's equally divided, and I'm going to tell you it never really is, but nonetheless, tell me.
Can you repeat the question?
Yes. The influence of the French culture, French language in Switzerland as compared to the Italian and the German.
That's a very difficult question, because at the end of the day, French is spoken in the French-speaking part of Switzerland, which is culturally quite different from the German-speaking part. So we come together as Swiss, respecting the different languages, but it's difficult to say whether the German has a stronger influence or the French has a stronger influence. Of course, we have 2/3 of the population speaking German, so in the media it's maybe a bit more important the German. But if I ask my friend in Geneva, is German really important? He would answer you, no, English is much more important than German, because we speak French, when we are in a business meeting or when we are at the United Nations in Geneva, we speak English.
What I hear you saying, Your Excellency, is that being Swiss for the Swiss supersedes whatever linguistic influences the languages, the diverse languages that you speak may have.
Yes, I would say so. If you ask a Swiss German whether he feels more like German or Swiss, he would. I think all would reply to you. We're part of a cultural space. The Swiss Germans are part of the German cultural space. The Swiss French are part of the French-speaking cultural space, but they very much feel Swiss. They don't feel like I'm French or I'm German because we have our own identity, we have our own history as Switzerland.
Okay.
So how would you describe a Swiss person? This amalgam of languages and cultures, like you, the Swiss person. What are the hallmarks of a Swiss?
I think a Swiss. It's all difficult as a Swiss to describe a Swiss. It maybe the French ambassador who are very close to the Swiss border could describe better what a Swiss is, because it's always good to have an outside view on someone and on. But I would say the Swiss are very very open-minded. Speaking different languages helps. Switzerland has been is a very small country, so Swiss. Whenever you sit in a car and you drive more than 2 or 3 hours, you're abroad in Switzerland. So it's open-minded. Swiss traveled a lot, and the Swiss economy and business expanded a lot, and Switzerland is not at least extremely globally well connected country, both in terms of science, in terms of business. I think we're quite international.
If to ask the question, Madam Ambassador, we look at the celebration of language and culture, which is what Francophone Week has been this year and years before. But then if we look at countries on the continent where there has been, unfortunately, divisive elements when it has come to language. And I'm going to look at the country of Cameroon, for example, whereby one of the elements that fuels the conflict today is the very fact that the French has been institutionalized to the point where those who speak English feel disenfranchised. Wouldn't this be a perfect opportunity where celebrations like this can actually bring people together? Because I'm looking at Switzerland, for example, that have been able to come together using all 3 languages and still operate. And I'm looking at a country like Cameroon, whereby the minority English-speaking side of the country is wishing that they would be part of the national cake. French being institutionalized in education, in government, across the country. We have the disenfranchisement. Isn't this an opportunity, even as a thing like Francophone Week is being celebrated, to say that language can actually be a joining force as opposed to a divisive element?
No, yes, indeed, I cannot answer for the Cameroonese. I think it should be a question put to my colleague, Ambassador of Cameroon. But it's not a question of language, it's a question of communities living together and how they can cope. And actually, French and English are the 2 official languages from Cameroon. So it's also a political issue that has to be settled. And I must say, I agree with you that Switzerland is definitely an interesting example of what governance can be when it comes to a multicultural country, preserving the identity of the communities, their rights, and also building a national identity, and it's very strong when it comes to Switzerland. And I would like to answer the question you asked to the Swiss ambassador, because I'm very much linked to Swiss from my own personal history. Actually, my grandfather came from Switzerland at a time where Switzerland was immigrating a lot to other countries, and I know a little bit the Swiss, and I'm very interested by the way they govern the country. Local democracy is key to them, and it's part of the answer. how to have a lively local democracy so that these identities are preserved and expressed. And it's at the same time a very modern, creative, and open to the world country. So it's not impossible to reach this. It needs political will, and our Swiss colleagues can also demonstrate and that it is possible.
Indeed. Just coming back to the question on Cameroon and such other examples, Madam Ambassador, and true what you say, much of this is a political effort that's required on local politics, but also with the kind of influence that France would have. And I think that's the question that Ndu was asking. This week that you celebrate the Francophonie week, would it not have been a very good opportunity for the political side of things also to be brought in and say, so how do we ensure that every Cameroonian, for example, feels Cameroonian, even those of us who speak French and those across the other line that speak English, but how can you use the politics, the time, the culture, the language, and this good bonhomie to basically influence the politics of the day?
I explained to you that Francophonie is also about diversity, preserving the diversity of languages and cultures. It's not about French taking the place of the English communities. It's not that at all. And then the Francophonie organization is also about common values and definitely democracy and the ability for people to express their identity in a multi-cultural world is key. So Francophonie organization can be a place where we can maybe facilitate this political choices, but it's up to the Cameroonese to take them up, and definitely France is pushing that on this. We are not seeing it as a cultural issue, a linguistic issue, but as a cultural one, where a minority area would like to have a better access to the democratic debate, but. Again, it's an issue for Cameroon to push on this, and also African Union is part of the picture when it comes to peace and security in the continent.
Languages, by their very existence, are an interesting tool, I figure, and I'm going to bring us into a little uncomfortable discussion. Languages, unfortunately, were seen during the times of colonialism as a tool for colonialism. It is now a tool for trade. It's now a tool for bringing actually people together. So when my colleagues bring in the issue of the Cameroonian influence, I'm going to ask this question. When we look at France, because France is the biggest representative of the French language, it's the dominant language that is spoken in France, what is it that the French do? And I'm talking about French generally, to ensure that their side of an understanding of their influence and the cultural penetration and benefits that they bring to the people of this continent are actually understood for what they are and are not mixed up with the politics. The politics will always come into the discussion.
I don't think we mix the French language and the politics. I think, as I said, we are deeply convinced that a language, and our language, and I must say we are proud of it, it's normal, is a key issue to share culture and indeed to live together in a world that is diverse and respective of all its cultural identities. So when it comes to Francophone Africa, it's a fact. If you want to communicate on a day-to-day basis, it's better to know French. Indeed, you will manage also with English, like we all do, because it tends to become also a lingua franca. But when you want to go deeper in the relationship and better understand your partner, and that was what the Egyptian ambassador very rightly pointed out, that you need to learn the language. It's not special to French, actually. I may say the same for Spanish. And indeed, when it comes to Africa and Kenya, I mean, Swahili is a very important language, and we make effort to learn and to develop also the teaching of Swahili in France, actually, and we are supportive of the efforts made by the Kenyan government to develop the teaching of Swahili. We are working together to on a rationalized curricula for this, and it's part of our DNA, I would say, to look into this and not to be French only oriented.
Deputy Ambassador Egloff, what do you think? Where is the importance of the preservation of language and culture? And what do you think countries can do to make sure that they preserve their culture, that they preserve their language, kind of mirroring against what we see now happening with Francophone Week every year?
So as it was mentioned a couple of times during this program, is that languages give access to a culture, and through this access to another culture, to a different culture, it enriches. And I was very surprised. A lot of people relate Switzerland with multilingualism, and indeed most Swiss speak two national languages and English. When I came to Kenya, I was very surprised that, and I didn't know that most Kenyans speak three languages as well. Mm-hmm. Their own language, Kiswahili, and English. Mm-hmm. So I think you're in a very good situation to measure a bit the richness that it gives to you as a country, and that it gives to you as a person when you master more than one language. And if you have access to more than one culture, if you can read a book in an original language or watch a movie in an original language and not only subtitled or dubbed. So what can be done to preserve multilingualism? Most importantly is practice language, speak language, make an effort to use your own language, even also in your country. Use your own mother tongue. Do not only speak English, as we use our mother tongues in Switzerland as well. And then in Switzerland we have, as I mentioned it before, we have also kind of legal protection measures and promotion. We have, for instance, the Swiss TV channel in Italian. We have about 8% of the Swiss population. There are 300,000-400,000 people speaking Italian as a mother tongue. It's not a business to run a TV station for 300,000-400,000 people, but it is something important that the government is willing to provide, because it is important for the Swiss Italian to have an own radio channel, an own TV channel. So this is one part, and I also mentioned that we publish anything that is published from the government in the three languages. This relates with a cost, but we definitely think in Switzerland that it's worthwhile. It's worthwhile investment.
Thank you very much. We want to thank you very much, ambassadors, for joining us. Ambassador Aline Cousteau-Menager, the French ambassador to the country, Patrick Egloff, the deputy ambassador of Switzerland to Kenya. We also had a conversation with the Egyptian ambassador Khalid Al-Abiad and Nicolas Nihon, the ambassador of Belgium to the country. Asanteni sana for joining us, and especially you, Madam Ambassador, for staying on the line with us for this long. Asante for speaking to us.
Asante sana.
Thank you very much.
It's 26 minutes after 8 o'clock. This is Kenya's biggest conversation. And as we continue the conversation, the Kenya Savannah Classic, presented by APSA, is Kenya's newest addition to the European tour and is currently underway at the current country club. Keep an eye out on some of our top Kenyan players like Samuel Njoroge and King David Wahu, who's currently leading the Kenyan players. Will he stay on top? Will the magical Kenya Open champion Harding, the South African, take a second crown? Follow all the action live on KTN News. And you can also join join the conversation online using the hashtag KSC2021. That's hashtag KSC2021 or hashtag Kenya Savannah Classic. In the meantime, grab a copy of the Standard newspaper or come online, standard.co.ke. That's standard media, .co.ke for detailed daily analysis and rankings of what's happening at the current country club. Good morning.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life.
Sugar and spice and everything nice, just the way you like it.
The Spice Drive.
Did you have a great day? I hope you did. I intend to make it better from 3 p.m. to 7 p.m. I'm going to be taking you home nice and chill. Everyone is welcome aboard. The hashtag is Spice Drive and, of course, SpiceFM KE on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter.
The Spice Drive with Monique. The official soundtrack of getting you where you need to be.
Thank you.
The political class, the contestants, everybody is trying to outsteal the other.
Remorse is not taught in any school. Manners is something you get from your mother. You don't get it from your political party.
Why are we so unfocused as a country? Why are we spending money and resources, yet we have real challenges in this country?
This coronavirus pandemic should teach us one thing, that universal healthcare is critical. Because at this point, whether you have a medical card that covers you, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. The weather with
sunny
Spice.
conditions in Nairobi, at least for now. 19 degrees, go to highs of 28 today, down to lows of 15. It's 15 and sunny in Nyeri, highs of 27 and lows of 10. 12 will be the low in Nakuru, sunny at 17, going to highs of 28. We're looking at highs of 27 in Eldoret. It's sunny at 15 at the moment. 21 degrees and sunny in Kisumu, highs of 31 and lows of 19. 23 and sunny in Kakamega, highs of 33, lows of 14. We're looking at mostly sunny conditions in Mombasa at 28. It'll go to highs of 33 and lows of 26. It's also sunny in Malindi at 29, highs of 33 and lows of 27. 28 will be the high in Kampala, where it's mostly sunny at 20, and we're looking at mostly sunny conditions in Dar es Salaam at 27, highs of 32 and lows of 26. It's still raining in Johannesburg at 13, highs of 19 and lows of 10. Also in Lagos at 25, the rain continues to come down for most parts of today, highs of 30 and lows of 25, and rain showers continue in Kinshasa at 23, highs of 29, coming back down to lows of 23.
Spice up your life. Traffic.
Is it the high cost of fuel, or is it that children have closed from schools that's causing less traffic on Thika Road this morning? That's a debate, but we'll have to see. And for the most recent days, not so much on Thika Road. So it's really good getting into the city without any issues. In and outbound is looking pretty good. In and outbound on Mombasa Road, however, is a bit slow. And we're also looking at, remember, Lusaka Bunyala, that road is not operational right now. That has been closed by the construction, and it's going to be that way for some time. Until it opens up, you're going to have to use another route. All right? We still have matatus that are carrying full capacity, guys. Don't get on one. If you see that it's full, protect yourself as best you can. Coming out of Westlands, still a trouble spot, at least for now. We'll take a look at that in a while and hope that opens up for folks. All right, let's talk in about half an hour and see what the traffic looks like. But for now, nothing too painful. SpiceFM KE on Twitter. That's how you can get in touch.
Sugar and spice and everything nice. SpiceFM.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
The Situation Room, 29 minutes to 9 o'clock. In the room with you this morning is Siti Muga Nduoko, Eric Latif, We've been having the conversation with the French about celebrating the Francophonie. Now let's switch the conversation and come and talk about our own country and our national carrier, Kenya Airways, which has recently announced its results. And they say they recorded the worst ever loss, right, at 36.2 billion shillings. That's quite a number, a figure, right, if you think about it. If you look at KQ, and we talked about this earlier as we were beginning the show, and we were looking at ahead of this interview. So Kenya Airways, like many other airlines globally, had to basically ground its fleet because of COVID-19 travel restrictions. Kenya Airways had actually to do the same and recall all their planes, bring them back to Embakasi, ground them, and continue seeing how best to operate without their single source of income, which is plane up in the air. So for many months, Kenya Airways was like that. But coming to this, Kenya Airways was already having, some issues in terms of historical issues. Project Mawingu that had started a while earlier, that went and hit turbulence in the skies, and it led Kenya Airways to where it was, where by the time we were getting to the beginning of last year, Kenya Airways was already recording losses. Kenya Airways was already looking at how best to bring the airline back online and up in the skies properly and to fly without turbulence. So when the year ends and they post a 36 billion shilling loss, you ask yourself, okay,
What on earth is going on?
What's happening? And then what can be done then to keep this airline flying?
Well, I mean, because, you're looking at the place where you knew that there was a problem, right? Already you knew that there was some wounds here and there that needed to be sorted out. But the hemorrhage that you then now see and the many questions that are being asked, then obviously answers are being sought. Beyond that, in as much as everybody wants to know what is going on, I think underlying that is everybody wants to know how the situation can be resolved. Is there a solution for this? Because for the longest time, this has been the narrative, that things are bad and getting worse. And now we see them from worse, it's getting even worse. And everybody wants that sense of pride to be returned, right? Everybody wants to say, if there's a problem, how can we fix it? But I think everybody wants to know the truth of the matter and how it can be fixed.
I have to travel along the lane of history because Kenya Airways was in trouble long before COVID.
Yes, it was, absolutely.
But that's not where I'm beginning. I'm beginning my discussion at a time when Kenya Airways had been in trouble much earlier, did a little jig, somehow managed to get their footing, and one could even argue that it was even making money at some point. All right? Now, when we talk about the current situation, which, my friend, as far as I'm concerned, if we're talking about losses, it means we are functioning. We may be on life support, but we're alive. Our vitals are still there. There are airlines that are supported by the national government that didn't just file for bankruptcy. They closed, shut down, completely done, finished, dusted. So it isn't as though our situation is the most dire you could speak of. If we know what our problems are, what led to this situation and what can be done, then I think the first steps towards recovery is at hand. But the expert, I think, is our guest, and he will be able to tell us some of these things.
Indeed, he is. The Managing Director and CEO of Kenya Airways, Alan Kilavuka, is on the line with us. Good morning, Alan.
Good morning, Eric. Good morning. How are you doing?
Very well. Thank you very much for joining us in the Situation Room. Welcome.
Thank you, Sana.
Since the last time we spoke to you, I was expecting that at least we'll see some grey hair on your head with the kind of turbulence you've gone through. You've plucked them out.
You plucked them out this morning before 8:30.
Yeah, plucked them out. But we're all good, doing our best to try and keep this national pride alive.
Alan, we've got to jump into it. And the question is, right now, whatever is the matter, a lot is being prescribed across board, whether it is media reports, whether it is the ever-powerful social media, and everybody's asking questions. What's going on? 36 billion shillings as a loss, of course. It's a lot of money. But beyond the money, then it is evident that there is a hole somewhere that is clearly not being plugged. What's the problem?
Yeah, let's start by saying that the loss shouldn't be a surprise. Okay, because there is not a single airline in the world which did not make a loss in 2020.
Yes.
In fact, I was doing some comparisons with the North American airlines, which have been profitable before. Now, if you split their loss per aircraft, a lot of them are making a loss of between $9 to $12 million per aircraft. Ours is around about that. It's about $9 million per aircraft. So the effect of Corona was widespread, was industry spread, and we expected this to happen. Now, we are not proud of this, of course, and I know not many people are proud of this. People want to help, and they don't know how to help. We also looked at the projections. So when we started 2020, in January, we had projected that we were going to make a loss anyway, but we were only going to make a loss of about 6 billion Kenya shillings. Because remember, in 2019, we had made a loss of 12 billion.
Yep.
So we are progressively improving by all the actions that we are taking, trying to maximize on revenue, trying to reduce our costs, increase our efficiencies, focus on our customer, and so on and so forth. And in January, before the Corona set in, we were actually on track to meet the budget. In fact, we were ahead of budget. We were ahead of budget by around about 12 to 15%. So we were very optimistic. We were very bullish that 2020 was going to be a good year for us in terms of at least meeting the budget or halving the losses that we had made the previous year. But Corona set in. And if you think about it, Corona, when we stopped flying around about end of March and started flying in August. In aviation, we have what we call peak season. The peak season is during the summer in Europe, which is around from June to September. Now, and of course, you don't book flying just before September. You actually start booking maybe in January. So all those bookings were cancelled, and our peak season completely collapsed. And this is why we are where we are. Like I'm saying, it is an industry-wide problem. Yes, we were in trouble before, but we were moving in the right direction, and Corona completely set us back.
So with this then, okay, it was not unexpected. The idea of making a loss was also not lost on management and the board and many observers. But now where we are is about 3 times more than what you had even projected to make as a loss. So to try and get back on track, get yourselves back in the sky, so to speak, what would be required now?
Yeah, so there are phases, Eric, that we have to go through. The first phase, which was 2020, was to survive. And I just joined the call. I had Buga saying very rightly that a lot of airlines collapsed before us. For example, in Africa, a lot of them were placed in the receivership. And Namibia, we know, has closed shop. We know that other airlines like Air Mauritius are under receivership or under administration or whatever it is. The South African Airways is not functioning at the moment. They're trying to resuscitate it. So the mere fact that we survived 2020 is in itself some sort of an accomplishment. Now, from here, what we need to do is to lay the foundation for growth. Really look at how do we, our strategy earlier was to shrink so that we can grow later on. And that's what we are working on right now. So we've shrunk significantly, and now we want to lay the foundation for growth. We know that the recovery is going to take about 2 to 3 years. We project 2024. This is when the numbers will be equivalent to 2019. In fact, if you just compare the 2020 numbers, so our 2020 passengers who flew us were 1.8 million. Compare that to 2019, 5 million. So about 60 to 65% decline in passenger numbers. So now we have to grow that number by doing a few things. First is making sure that we are flying in profitable routes, making sure that we are encouraging our passengers to fly through the own things that we are doing. Of course, we are dependent on what government and other government agencies are going to do, because they also are placing restrictions on travel to various destinations, including our government. They're taking action against that. So it depends on what is going to happen in the marketplace. But on our part, from an operational standpoint, we're going to make all the necessary efforts to lay the foundation for growth. This year is not going to be pretty. Let me warn everybody ahead of time. But we are laying the foundations for the oncoming years.
The last time we spoke, you spoke about the same thing: shrink to grow. Look at the routes that you're going to operate in. Look at the optimizing your staff. And then you went into a staff rationalization. Well, that's the term to use, right? Staff rationalization.
Yes,
All right. So what else do you expect to do as you look at shrinking? Have you done all the shrinking that you need to do? Are you now set to grow, or do you need to readjust your shrinking again further?
Yeah, I mean, it's a constant readjustment. The situation is very volatile, Eric. And airline business is so complex because there are a lot of external factors that affect us. Let me give you an example. So, for example, this year, this time last year, the oil price was about $40 per barrel. Then, when it came to about July, when we were not flying, it was actually almost zero. Right?
Yep.
The price is continuously going up, 60, 70. In fact, yesterday I was listening to BBC, and they were saying they're estimating that it will hit 120 by the end of the year. So the situation is very volatile from that regard. Europe is another instance, for example. This is our key market for us. We had stopped flying to Netherlands and Paris in March. And we were hoping to start flying, in February, we were hoping to start flying in March. New restrictions are being placed in Germany as we speak. New restrictions are being placed in Netherlands. So, the situation is volatile. So we cannot say definitively that this is the end of it. We've stopped our rationalization process. We're not going to make any more changes. We're not going to make any more adjustments. Of course, we have to be sensitive to the market. We have to be adaptable. But the airline or the company that is going to win is the one that is going to respond to the market and respond to our customers. And that's what we're going to do continuously.
From what you have right now, then, Alan, what is the customer saying? Because if there's something you're responding to, then I'm hoping that there's a plan in place, What is the customer saying? What are they asking you right now as an airline to do that you're essentially then going to follow?
Yeah. So there are three things that we have seen coming very strongly. First of all, customers are concerned about their health and safety, right? Mm-hmm. They want reduced risk of contracting the virus or any other communicable disease. Mm-hmm. So our responsibility is to make sure that our aircraft is safe for our passengers. We also want to make sure that we have the protocols all in place and continuously advise our customers on safe procedures that will keep them safe from contracting this virus. And of course, we also do our part. We make sure that our aircraft is clean. We make sure that our staff are safe to operate the aircraft. So that's one. The other thing is most passengers are looking for a direct connectivity. So they're looking for point to point. Many passengers are looking for less transfers. Or reduced transfer for that matter. So we are trying to make that possible by offering as few connections as possible. Of course, for us, we are a network airline, so we have to connect through Nairobi. But how do you make it safe and for our passengers to safely transit through Nairobi, and also offer alternatives to fly to as many direct destinations as we possibly can. And then the third thing is, we're listening to where do customers want to go, where is the biggest demand coming from. So when demand comes, we deploy. In fact, in some instances, we've even been doing what we call semi-charters, so to speak, or dedicated frequencies to specific destinations where we think passengers would be interested in going to. So we are responding in that way. We are also going digital. We have revamped our digital platform, all of them. We have revamped our contact center, which was overwhelmed, by the way, because of lots of inquiries from our customers. So customers were getting frustrated. So we are revamping it. We're putting more people there, new technology, so that they can respond quickly to our customers.
There's something that has been niggling in the back of my mind when you talked about fuel. Now, I'd like you to help me understand this. When we buy fuel, do we buy it in the same way as I buy milk every day? Or do we buy it in bulk, like I buy unga so that it lasts me for a month? Or do you have an arrangement with somebody who supplies you at a certain fixed price? How does the airline business buy oil? Why I'm asking is, I would assume that given that when you start flying or you're flying, you anticipate and you have an understanding of how much you will need. So the buying should be aligned to this understanding.
Yes. So we have contracts because just if you think about it, we fly to different places, so we need to fuel at different places, right? We fuel here in Nairobi, which is our base. Of course, this is the majority of where we fuel from. So we contract with suppliers here in Nairobi. We also contract with suppliers in other of our key destinations so that we can, when we land in, say, for example, London, we are able to fuel. So we have fuel as across our network. Then the other thing as well is the price, of course, will lag fuel prices because, we contract for, if you contract now, the fuel that we are going to consume is going to be priced at last month's price. But there's a portion of our fuel which we hedge, okay, according to the mandate that we've been given by the board. So we would hedge up to 35% of our consumption based on risk, so that we can. So the way we hedge is it's like an insurance policy that we hedge that the price will be at a certain point, and if it goes beyond that point, we will only pay the premium. We will not pay the price that is over and above that. Now, the issue that we have also faced, in fact, this year in particular, is because of the volatility and because of the state of airlines around the world, it becomes more difficult to get what we call counterparties to help you with the hedging policy. So again, like I said, the difficulty with running an airline is all these complexities and your reliance on many of the external parties to make everything fall into place so that it can work all in harmony.
That was my first question. Let me ask the second question, because you said the airline business is a complex one, and I'm beginning to see it's actually very complex. What are the structural advantages that Kenya Airways has when it comes to choosing the routes that we want to follow and also trying to be in tandem with what the would-be our passengers and our clients would have? The reason why I asked this question is because I heard someone mention in passing, and you can confirm or you can shed more light on it, that we had a certain advantage at Heathrow Airport, which at some point or the other we lost. I think it's called a concession. How exactly are we structured favorably to help us recover or put us on this path of recovery?
So, I mean, so Muga, you are asking a very good question. All the adjustments that we make to our network are based on needs and are based on our abilities, are based on partnerships that we have with other airlines, and also the network needs that we have. So, for example, we operate a hub in Nairobi. So all the slots that we try and get in Heathrow, for example, Amsterdam, Paris, and Asia, in China, in Canton, in JFK, all of them, we try and make sure that they connect to a network, because we're not a point-to-point destination. So that if we are flying in people from Lagos, we want to make sure that they're connecting to the ongoing traffic to either Europe or America. So that is feeding those planes that are going to Europe and America and Asia. On the other hand, when you're bringing people back into Nairobi, we also want to make sure that they're doing the same thing. We can defeat them into, other parts of Africa, because we are ultimately an African airline. So any slots that we give up or any concessions that we give up, taking into consideration, we're taking into consideration the cash needs that we have at the moment. We're taking into consideration the network that we want to operate. Maybe we want to slim down the network, or the advantages that we want to use with our other partners. So in the case, so for example, in a particular case, if KLM, which was our partner, then has a slot in in London, which we can utilize, and we have an extra slot, then we can give up one and utilize the one that is within our JV, our network. And on the other hand, of course, they would do the same thing. So it is a network, working with partners, working with taking into cognizance our network needs, our defeeding and feeding, our banking structure here, that will help to make the airline as effective as possible.
I know one other conversation that we did have previously with you, Alan, was looking at regional continental flights and looking at the prices of such, and even the conversation then about reduction on prices flying on the continent. Is that something that could come into play? And we know there's a lot of contracting that goes on, especially with regional bodies and such. But is that a conversation that can be had? Because truth be told, flying right now on the continent, with the prices, they are actually quite expensive. If you want to do a comparative analysis to flying within other continents, is that a possibility that could come into play? As one of the things you're looking in terms of what customers want. I can tell you for a fact, it's one of the things that they want, to be able to fly on the continent for cheaper.
Yeah. So we have, and that's another critical point. We have a problem in Africa. One of the problems is the connectivity is poor. It's at least 40% lower than anywhere else in the world. In other words, flying from one place in Africa to another is at least 40% less efficient than any other place in the world. Secondly, like you rightly pointed out, is the cost. The cost is 2 to 3 times more expensive per kilometer than any other place in the world. The third is the capacity, with options, giving people options. And then the fourth is the ability of people, the propensity of people to pay. Mm-hmm. They basically just don't have money to buy tickets. So everything is working against growing the industry. Now, what is the answer? The answer, in my mind, is two. One is the governments across Africa need to look at aviation as essential and therefore not a luxury. Mm-hmm. Because it is a means to travel, it's a means to move goods from one place to another. I think one of the problems that we're having in Africa is it is seen as a luxury. It's only for the people who can afford it. Mm-hmm. And so, you can tax them and, it can be expensive and they'll afford to do that. In other places in the world, it is actually seen as essential travel. So it's more affordable per kilometer than it is in Africa. The second point is, and this is very critical, it is time now for Africa to consolidate our aviation assets. Mm-hmm. We are just too small to compete, and that is a fact. Mm. Kenya Airways on its own is simply too small to compete. Ethiopian is too small. Rwanda and so on and so forth. Those are too small to compete. It is time for Africa to consolidate. So that, and if you look at other places in the world, in North America, for example, how many airlines do they have? Big airlines. I mean, they have smaller ones, of course. But the airlines of note, there are about 4, right? If you think about it. Mm-hmm. In Europe, same thing. There are about 4 groups only. Air France, KLM, that's 1. Lufthansa is 2. IAG is 3. And in fact, those are the 3 that I can think of. There's no other big airline group. And all those groups I'm talking about have consolidated large airlines. And they have 800 plus aircraft. Think about Kenya Airways. We have 34 aircraft. Even Ethiopia, which people say is big, only has 100 or so aircraft. Those are very small airlines. And so we need scale to be able to survive the future. And it is critical and essential for Africa to consolidate our aviation assets, our airlines, so that we have scale, so that we reduce our costs in terms of applying our fixed costs.
Thank you very much for speaking to us, Alan. I'd like to let you go. But before we let you go, actually, when the results came out, 36.2 billion shilling lost, the question that comes to mind is, does KQ require a bailout? Is that in the cards?
Yeah. So, Eric, I'll tell you what. Yes, it does. Let me answer your question first. Yes, it does require a bailout. And I hasten to add that so does all other airlines in the world. In fact, I was doing an analysis again this morning. Airlines in the world have all received bailouts and into billions of dollars, even the ones that were so-called stable. even the ones that are not actually admitting it have received bailout. So yes, we do. I just wanted to say that we as Kenya Airways, so Kenya Airways has the people, resolve, and the position to get better over time. But the effect of this corona will be there for a long time. The pandemic has really hit us hard. It has drained most of our resources. But yes, we do require support in the interim. But we have a plan. We have a plan to get better. We have the people to get better. We have the resolve to get better.
Do you have the amount that you need? Do you know how much you need immediately?
Yes, we do. At the very minimum, what we need for this year, this is 2021, we need about $500 million, for us to be able to survive. And we've not made that a secret. I think we've been saying that since last year. So this would be, and why do we need this? We need this because we have a lot of obligations that we've not been able to fulfill because we had absolutely no revenue for about 5 months last year. So we have a lot of obligations that we need to fulfill. Operationally, our operations right now, we are at about 50% cannot support the costs that we are carrying today. And some of the costs are fixed and are committed, so we can get out of them. So we do need that for the interim. But like I said, our projections, Eric, is that by 2024, we are hoping that we will be 2024, 2025. We're hoping that we will be at a break-even position.
Thank you very much, Alan Kilavuka, the Group MD and CEO of Kenya Airways. Thank you for joining us this morning.
Thank you very much, Eric.
And time for us to say goodbye to our audience on KTN Home. You can switch over to SpiceFM 94.4 Nairobi, Mombasa 87.9, 102.5 in Kisumu, Malindi 97.7, Nyeri 90.9. Nakuru is 96.0 and Eldoret is 96.7. Good morning.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life. Spice FM, Malindi.
2024. They get to a point where they think they could do it. But that is dependent on whether they actually can get some cash injection. $500 million. How much is that in Kenya shillings?
$1 billion.
It's $500 million. Yeah, so it's 50. So $500 million dollars is 50 billion shillings.
50 or 5?
50.
50 billion.
They need $500 million is what he said. $500 million is 50 billion shillings.
We know the airline exists. We know what it does. We know what it needs to compete. This thing is structured for a government bailout, which in my view looks like a government buyout. Yes. So,
does the government have that kind of money?
The government has money for what it thinks is important.
John says City can lend them that kind of cash.
After all, milk money is 2 million shillings.
One of the things that I love about the imagination is that it really has no limits.
It doesn't.
No, kuna.
Keep it right here for more conversations into the next hour, and we like you now to join the conversation on 0719-012-600. That's 0719-012-600. SpiceFM KE, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. That's the social media. Good morning. It's 9 o'clock.
Spice up your life. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi. Traffic.
Okay, so not too terrible this morning. Actually, it's looking pretty good. Except now going towards Outer Ring, Taj Mahal, there's a problem today. Heavy traffic right around Taj Mahal, headed out towards Outer Ring. Don't know what is causing that, but it's going to spill over. It has already spilled over to parts of Mombasa Road today, as you're trying to use that exchange to get in that direction. We're going to find out what's going on there and give you that information. The Southern Bypass had an accident earlier on. That has been sorted out, so smooth into the city, the long way, but smooth all the same. Let's keep an eye out. For now, it doesn't look too bad, guys. Coming off Mombasa Road, expected as you get towards the Nyeri Stadium roundabout. Everywhere else is flowing very well. SpiceFM KE, that's how you can get in touch on Twitter. Text on 40127.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latif, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room, the only way to start.
9:02.
Oh, okay. 9, 2, what? All right.
See, somebody asked for a headache.
What are you trying to say?
9:02.
I'm saying 9:02.
Okay.
As in time is 9:02.
Yes, it is. City, what's today's proverb?
Today's proverb isn't 9:02, that's for sure. Being a leader is like a borrowed garment.
Okay. Okay. Sawa.
You know, there are very many things in life that we take the view are permanent, and yet there's no permanency. The permanency is just the length of time when it's there, but it's never really permanent. No. It's life. That's why people say life, it's transitory. It is here today, gone tomorrow.
Like
and
that.
I don't think there's anything we've had in this century that has brought that home, that message, clearer home than COVID-19. Because all the questions that used to be asked, does this COVID really exist? Apana, this one, it's for the government. The reality of COVID is now with us because it's not just a question of people who've been infected. It's now we're in the realm of those who are affected. Anyone who is alive and well will tell you of somebody they know, somebody they're related to, perhaps even themselves, and the influence that COVID has had in their lives. The number of people who've been infected and who've recovered are more than those who have succumbed to the disease. So the truth is, it's with us. And then there's a reality of COVID that perhaps isn't talked about often enough. There's reinfection. You can be infected and then infected again. And that is why...
Within how long?
I don't know. I don't know. Because to begin with, when you talk of the infection, it depends on your exposure. And even then, you can't really tell when you're exposed. In all honesty, you can't.
You can't.
If there's one thing, again, that we know about COVID is that there is so much about it we don't know. And this ideal plan that somebody has for figuring it out and for combating it, no one in the world has it. It's just that some people are seem to have a better hang of it than the others, but everyone is trying something which works and doesn't work.
Just all trial and error.
At some level, it's precisely that, really.
Okay.
And hopefully that you will learn from the error and then shepherd your way back into a path that may be more useful.
Even the vaccine is still trial and error.
No, the vaccine is more trial than it is error. By the time we're talking about it being licensed for emergency use, it means we know that the positivity rate, if I may use a simple term, is greater than any harm that it could possibly present. That we know.
Yeah, it's true. I think there's a lot swirling around at the moment, conspiracy theories, this, that, the other thing, that there are people who may have introduced this virus in order for them to then produce a vaccine, which essentially people would buy, and then it would then, create a lot of riches. But be that as it may be in some sphere of imagination somewhere, the truth of the matter is that there is a virus today that's affecting and killing people today for which a treatment or a vaccine is necessary, and that has been so far developed. It is true, and we have vaccine. I think at the moment, if we're looking at the numbers of vaccines that have been developed, I think we're about 7 or 8 across the world, each of them with a different level of efficacy. But for the primary reason of creating a line of defense against this virus. It exists, it is there, and it's there for the prevention of the same. The question then for a lot of people is, then is it going to cause me more harm than good? And I think now that's the point, that actually the truth of the matter is that it'll do more good than it will do harm if you get the vaccination.
That's what we know so far.
That's what we know so far.
And what we are hoping as well.
Yeah,
Because
from
there are those
the
that
trials.
say that you don't know then what it could do in the longer run, in the longer term, and the effects that could come after you've had the vaccine, yes, and it's dealing with this, and the virus is mutating and it's being fought by this vaccine in your system. How could that reaction end up in a few years' time?
We actually don't,
We don't know.
And that is why when we talk about it being licensed for emergency purposes, forget even that. You as an individual, you may think you're fine and you're well. But what we're discussing is you do not know what will happen to you when that vaccine enters your body and what are the reactions it elicits. You don't know.
Yeah.
Now, you can't know also until you get the vaccination. It isn't really different from having a medical checkup. You feel well because we determine our wellness by how we feel usually.
Sure.
And then you are told all manner of things. And you're saying, it can't be true. And you're being told, actually, no. The fact that you feel well is all good and well, but this also is what your body has presented. This is what we know. And the reason why people go for checkups if they can is so that you catch any possible harm early. And then you're able to deal with it effectively. Because if it takes root, then getting rid of it becomes almost impossible, or at best really very difficult. So, again, the reality again is we live in a time when we've seen something very unusual. It isn't very often that you find private enterprise and governments coming together to do what they've done with COVID. And it's also interesting to see the speed with which they have moved. So even, as you say correctly, and you put it well really, the conspiracy theories may go full steam ahead, but the reality is COVID is here. Talk around it, talk about it, give it the explanations that you think will be suitable, but COVID is here. Reality.
Should we then be encouraging, should governments be then encouraged to open it up and have a plan that is going to make sure that as much of your population can be inoculated as possible now?
Credit should be given where it's due, shouldn't it? Okay. First step, I had predicted doom and delay, okay, when it came to COVID. My doom and delay prediction had been found wanting, way off completely. The vaccines actually came at a time that was promised, after the time which had been promised, after the time which had been promised before that, and after the time which had been promised before that, but it came.
Yes.
Okay? And so we have it.
It landed at JKIA.
It landed at JKIA.
And it moved from there to Kitengela.
Yes.
And then we saw some governors saying that they have, they have received it.
Yes.
Now, that's as far as I want to end.
No, then we've had testimonies of people who have been vaccinated, like myself and others.
That's as far as I want to take that conversation. And ask me why.
Why?
Okay, Eric. Okay, let me just pause for a while. Eric, let me ask you why. Eric, why?
Buga, you've asked a very important question. Now, the answer to that question is multi-pronged, really. If you want to look at it broadly, a matter of speak. The vaccine is being rolled out in the country. Yes, that's a fact, because we have heard and we have seen people being vaccinated. We also know the vaccine has a definite plan of how it's being rolled out. Healthcare workers, people who are in the front line, not just healthcare. Healthcare workers, we may think of the professionals in the healthcare industry. It's everybody who's working in the healthcare industry. Everybody who's working in a learning institution. Everybody who's working in security. Now, we have heard some testimonies of people who are saying, yes, they have gone and gotten the vaccine. We have heard some people who even go and say, yes, I got a vaccine, and after that I got a follow-up message from MOH saying, you've received your vaccine, dose 1, the second dose expected on such and such a day. We have also seen reports coming from other parts of the country where those who should be receiving the vaccine have absolutely no clue when, how, where they will receive this vaccine. And that's why I'm saying I want to end it from the fact that we saw a consignment and we were told those are the vaccines, and they arrived at JKIA. We saw a consignment, we were told, and the president went and inspected it in Kitengela. We saw governor saying, here are the vaccines. We've seen some people being injected. Now, is it being rolled out in the country? I'm not 100% sure that it's going to the people it should be going to. There are healthcare workers who don't know when they're getting it. We are seeing reports from other counties, for example, where only about 90 or so healthcare workers have been inoculated. So what's happening?
Well,
it's one thing to have the vaccine. It's another thing to carry it into people's bodies.
Something to me, something is amiss here, and I can understand that the first couple of days are going to have teething problems and all of this, and it's clear. Now, when you say that something is here, right, and you know that it is absolutely important for certain categories of people to get it, and we say, okay, it is here at point A, point B, point C, then nobody is coming, and it's important. For me, it's very simple. Take it to them. Where you have set up and you see that they're not coming, move that center to where they're going to be. It doesn't make sense to even, because we're now at 3 weeks now since the vaccine rollout began, even a tenth of the teachers that they said they were going to inoculate before the exam started has not happened. Healthcare workers, we're not even looking, how many do we have around the country? We've not, where are we? And on Monday we had that conversation and we said, okay, look, it's possible that this is going to take time, but some things are already clear. Some things today are clear, that people are not coming and getting it as they should. All right. There are certain reasons why. Maybe they are not able to leave their place of work to go and get it. And by the time they can leave, the center has shut down. Set up a center where the majority of these people either are or that it is easily accessible to them. We're not talking about something that is difficult. We are seeing it being done in other countries right now. Set it up for them. And that they're the ones that you want to target first. Take it to where they are. And I don't think it should be that difficult to do.
I think it also goes into planning. And I hear what you were saying earlier, CT, because CT raised a very, very valid point, which is in the initial stage, what you want to do is you want to test, move, observe. Test, move, observe. But that should also have been incorporated in the planning. Such that in the planning, you knew very well, this is what we were going to do. We were not going to say that we are inoculating people in Nairobi County from only one center. We are going to test in several centers. And this is what we were going to do. And then we were going to make sure that we communicate to the people in the other centers that you don't need to leave your workstation to come here. We will come to you. Or we want you to arrange yourselves. Talk to the med soup in every hospital and tell them, come up with a rota of how people are going to come from Mama Lucy Hospital to Mbagathi to get the vaccine and go back to work. Come up with a rota like that. Now, it's not clear. With the lack of that planning logistically from the end to end, so we knew the centers and you knew where it's going to be. Once you open the vial, you know that you need to use that within a certain time.
Yes.
Now, if people are not coming, what are you doing? It means that these vaccines are going bad because you've already opened and you're waiting for people to come and they're not coming. Sasa tufanye nini? Mama kuja. Wanataka shindano.
If I look at other vaccination exercises that the country has had over the years, they are well planned, well in advance. Okay? This is different. You're not just vaccinating a specific group of people. This is something that is meant for the entire country.
Yes.
And even as you start with the issue of, you've categorized them, frontline workers, okay, security, health workers, teachers, people in the media, okay, frontline workers. Now,
you've added it. Thank you.
I had to add it.
That's because slip it in there,
Thank you for recognizing.
No, I have to not slip it in, I have to state it because people in the media are frontline workers.
Yes, true.
Okay. And then they've added prelates, people who are in the church. They've also been added to that list. And they ought to have been in that list from the beginning. But if we take the entire exercise of inoculation, the entire exercise of COVID understanding as a constant work in progress, that is the view that I have. It's a constant work in progress. That's why I haven't given my favorite example of the changing of the fiduciary issue. Okay, I like because that thing was organized and planned and executed to a T, communicated effectively. This one is different because they're moving parts. And you're never really sure in which direction they're moving. Okay? Now, I understand that because of the vagaries that are involved in this exercise, there are things the government may not particularly want to say. The unfortunate thing is the government is going to be judged by their history. Their efforts are going to be judged by their history. You see, I would like to put that history aside for purposes of the future, but unfortunately I can't. It's always at the back of my mind, even as I'm thinking, and I'm saying, okay, are we seeing something that we've seen before, or do we have a new chapter that is opening before us? The issue of vaccination is one of the best opportunities the government has for opening a new chapter. Because if they get this right, many previous historical wrongs will have been righted. You'll say, you know, the government did this properly. And it's something they can do. Not in terms of planning. That they do. Communicating. That eternal issue. Communicating effectively. Letting people know.
Okay. So I want to raise something that a statement was issued by the Kenya Private Sector Alliance yesterday. And this conversation has also been raised by other people. Now that we are seeing like there's a slow uptick somehow in the first category of people that wanted to take, that were required to get this vaccine, should it be opened up to others and say, all right, because we are seeing a slow uptick here, let's bring in the next vulnerable group. The next vulnerable group, for example, is the elderly and the people who have pre-existing conditions. Should those ones be brought up immediately and say, okay, right now, if you are above 50, you have a pre-existing condition, turn up to this particular center and get vaccinated? Or should we still be waiting until the next financial year to start that?
No. Because you know what? In as much as we are saying that categories have already been set out, guess what? This virus, as we know, continues to mutate. And I'm going to go with that argument that the experts have told us about even as we speak today. That you have an opportunity to protect, even if it's the first line of defense against this virus, for people who are sitting around waiting for it to happen, waiting for the vaccination to happen. And if it's not happening, go ahead and dispense it. Like you said, introduce the next line of vulnerable people, introduce the elderly above a certain age, introduce those with comorbidities. Do it today. Because again, the shelf life as you go day to day continues to shorten.
Yep.
It continues to shorten. So if you see that people are not taking it up, like I said, today, make an announcement and let another sector, a category of the population know that they may now go and get vaccinated. You will see queues in this country as people are waiting to go and get vaccinated. People are just waiting for the go-ahead.
But you know, this so-called apathy is not well informed. I mean, when we say apathy, what do you mean?
People are reluctant to go and get vaccinated.
That's what we're told. But do they know they should go and get? Do they all know they should get?
Is that the situation really? On the ground?
Yes, exactly. And do they know where they can get? Because even, in all honesty, if I hadn't been informed by colleagues about it, we look at these papers every single day.
Yeah, there's nowhere.
I did not see
You consume media daily.
That's what we do every day.
We spoke with the union leader and he was telling us the only thing he was seeing is an SMS saying, come to this room on a certain day.
Yes, tell me. Maybe you people read something in the papers and I didn't. I didn't. If I hadn't been informed, I wouldn't have known.
You would not have known.
Now, you tell me, what about other people who need to be informed and don't know? Because it seems to be word of mouth.
Yeah.
All right. The communication is wanting at best. That is true. And I think that for those who are supposed to be getting the vaccination right now, not really sure where they should go, or if they can go at any time, nobody knows. Okay. Very few people are aware of that information. Now, we did see something else coming from the Ministry of Health a few days ago when they said these are the centers that will be opened up across counties throughout the country. And that was it. So now, are you saying for the next batch? Are you saying
and
for everybody else?
It was
are
just
you saying
a statement.
For the yeah. Are you saying this is for the same people who are currently allowed to go get vaccinated now? Who is it for? So the communication has been bungled, but it is not unsalvageable right now. There is an opportunity right now for government to say very clearly, all right, for the next 3 weeks, We are going to continue vaccinating healthcare workers. We are going to continue vaccinating teachers. We are going to continue vaccinating security personnel. We are going to do that for 3 weeks. You may leave your station and go to any place within A, B, C, D. Get that done. I also do think that they need to say, we also will have centers opened up in other areas. In the event that that doesn't happen, I think they need to open it up to everybody else.
So, may I say, this thing, you have a very specific group of people that you're not talking about the elderly, people above 70 or who are living in various. You're talking about people who leave their homes every day and go to work at a certain specific station, and you know what those stations are. Health care facilities, police stations, military barracks, How difficult is it to go to Langata barracks and inoculate the soldiers? Go to Kahawa. You will not find soldiers
They are a captive
all
audience.
over. They are in barracks. Go vaccinate them there. Police officers don't work out of their homes. They're not working from home. They are working from police stations. Go to police station. Go and vaccinate the guys. What is so difficult in that? Why are we expecting that a police officer will leave their beat and go and queue at Mbagathi? Why should they?
Why should they?
This thing, go to any clinic, set up a center. Say, on this day, we are coming to this clinic. Everybody who works here, even those who are off duty on that day, come. You work here as a cleaner, as a security person, as a cook, as a lab technician,
You're
as
in that category.
a doctor, as a nurse, as you will get vaccinated, and we will move to the next one.
You see why I talked about the history. You see, we are back to that discussion of truth and trust. You see? Because if the truth isn't communicated effectively, then what we've done is we've lost trust. Now, the problem with losing trust, my friend, the repercussions are profound and they are negative and they are unwanted and they are unwarranted. Okay? Because the moment you have that deficit, all these things we keep talking about, mental health, our societal GPS system has gone whack completely. Off. So, you're not really sure who should take care of the caregiver.
Our north is a southeast.
It's gone. It's completely off. So, an opportunity to set it right so that we know what the true north is, if there's a north. And if you talk about south, we know where the true south is. Yet, we still seem stuck in that time-old habit that we have of minimalist information, hit and miss. We're all in chat group forums. How often do you people telling you, I went here, I was told to go there, and I was told, no, I can't go there. Then I went, surely, is this how we're going to handle this thing? At hit and miss, let me go and see if they're going to provide it here.
So let's assume that the government is incapable of doing all those other things. It's incapable of actually going to health centers, to police stations, to military barracks to inoculate those people. Let's just say, open it up. Mko wapi Mbagathi? We will come. Tell anybody who wants to go and get a vaccine, go to Mbagathi, queue. You want to queue until 7 p.m., go and queue until 7 p.m., get your injection, go home.
Mbagathi isn't the only health facility in this town.
No, it's not.
If you're going to talk about Mbagathi, then choose a health center of a facility of a similar capacity in the various parts of the city and say, this is where you go. But even then, why am I doing the work for them and I'm making suggestions?
25
Oh,
minutes
my
after
Lord.
9. See, let's take a look at the weather and then we'll look at traffic at 9:45. Good morning.
(24/7) around the world, non-stop. This is SpiceFM.
It's time to answer questions that are worthwhile. The Big Quiz Show is here. Register to play from the comfort of your home by SMSing the word JOIN to 23774. Then watch the live show on KTN every Sunday from 8 p.m. where you could have a chance to win a melee. The fastest and most accurate answers are guaranteed to win. The Big Quiz Show, Sundays at 8 p.m. only on KTDA.
Are you looking for a plan this Easter holiday? Sarit Your City has got your back. Have a wonderful time with friends and family at Sarit Your City this Easter. Tune in to the Spice Drive with me, Monique, from 3 p.m. every weekday to learn more about what activities Sarit has in store for you. You also stand a chance to win shopping vouchers, and you get to join me on ground on the 2nd of April as I host the Spice Drive on location from Sarit, a city within a city. I can't wait to see you there.
The weather with Spice
All
FM.
right, it's mostly sunny in Nairobi at 21. I'm going to go to highs of 28 today, lows of 15. Sunny in Nyeri at 18, highs of 27 and lows of 10. 12 will be the low in Nakuru today. It's sunny at 19, going to highs of 28. We're looking at highs of 27 in Eldoret. Sunny at 18 right now. 31 the high in Kisumu. 24 at the moment. It's sunny in Kakamega. Go to highs of 33 and lows of 14 today. Also sunny in Mombasa, going to highs of 33 and lows of 26. 33 will also be the high recorded in Malindi. It's now 30. Sunny in Kampala, highs of 28 and lows of 18. It's also sunny in Dar es Salaam at 32. The high today down to lows of 26. Still rains in Johannesburg at 13. We'll see lows of 10. We'll see lows of 25 in Lagos. It's now cloudy. The rain has stopped, at least for now. Rain showers continue in Kinshasa. Lows of 23 today and highs of 29. 21 degrees, quite warm for Beijing. It's monsoon season, or just about to be, looking at lows of 12. 5 degrees the low in Paris. Rain showers now at 9, highs of 14. Highs of 13 in London. It's sunny now at 5. And in New York, 10 degrees and cloudy. It'll go to highs of 21 today and coming down to lows of 13.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM.
Well, this is Kenya's biggest conversation, the situation room. We want to ask you this question. Then you can tell us also what you think. 0719012600. Should the vaccination campaign be opened up to anybody?
Eric, may I also suggest that could our listeners also tell us if they know of how that exercise is being carried out in the areas where they come from?
Yeah. Have you heard of anyone who's gotten the vaccine?
There's clarity? Have you perhaps received the vaccine? Do you know people who've received it? And how easy is it to get the vaccine in the area you come from?
So you got your vaccine on Friday, right?
I did.
And according to Dr. Ahwale, you should have received an SMS from the government.
Operative phrase, should have.
Have you?
No, I haven't. Let me just.
Yeah, the simple answer sometimes.
No, I haven't. Let me just put it simply. No, I haven't.
Before your head will start pinning you now.
No, I haven't.
Okay. Let's hear from our friend Ed Gitonga. Ed, good morning.
Hey, morning, guys. How have you been?
Good.
Very well, thank you, Ed. And where might you be this lovely morning?
Right now I'm in Pika.
You've become the wewe ndio unatalii Kenya.
Mimi ndio natalii Kenya, but I've been in Nairobi for the past 1 week actually.
Okay.
Yeah, so guys, I think it should be open to everyone. Because even those who have been given the priority, some of them are not taking that chance. And you may deny yourself that chance that someone else does want. So I think if those people were being given our Turkey, like Mombasa, there was some apathy over there. So what I think should be done is it should be open. You just walk in, get your job, and that's it.
That is one side of it. The other side of it is also where to get the job.
Now that's the question now. Because now, okay, for example, now, like there's those people who want the job and maybe they're in Nyeri, for example. You have to cough out 8,000 shillings at the Nyeri cottage to get the Sputnik vaccine, right? There's a vaccine, the Russian vaccine.
Where is it? It's in Nanyuki?
At Nanyuki Cottage Hospital has it.
Since when?
I think yesterday, yeah.
And how much is it going for?
And one job is going 8K.
What?
For both jabs or for a single jab?
For a single jab, Sputnik, the Russian version of the vaccine.
Allah.
Ed.
So, right now, 8K, yeah?
Ed.
Allah.
Yes?
8,000 shillings for a pop of the vaccine.
Is it something you
Are
know?
you sure? You were there and you saw?
Excuse me. It was actually... Okay, I don't want to... I was watching news yesterday at some station, and that is where it was aired at.
Mm-hmm.
And in the morning, as I was flipping through stations, I heard that it is 8,000 bob.
Okay.
So that's why I'm even giving you the specific hospital, Nanyuki Cottage Hospital.
If you could perhaps do us an even bigger favor, if you know of anyone who's actually gone and gotten vaccinated and paid that amount, let us know.
Let's hear about it.
Yeah, I will when I do.
Asante sana. Thank you very much, Ed.
Yeah, have a good one, guys, and please let the government. I would like to not now. This now, I won't pressure the government. I'll pressure the people. Please, people, be serious. This thing is real. The things, Eric, I am saying, Ukunje. I think people are taking it as a joke. Before Alfred Mutua released that message that Machakos Nikubaya. I was at Utawala, and the ambulances that were heading to and from Machakos. I think people need to be serious now.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Ed.
It's high time. Good day.
Asante, good day to you. 0719-012-600. Have you received the COVID vaccine? Do you know anybody who has received the COVID vaccine? If you haven't and would you like the government then to open it up and say anybody who would like to get this vaccine, come and get it? Because right now we're talking about very low figures of those that have received the vaccine. Less than 70,000 have been vaccinated so far, against a target of 503,000 people.
530,000, sorry. 530,000.
530,000 people should have gotten the vaccine by now. It's been so far reserved for people in the front line. That is people working in hospitals, people working in security, and people working in schools. So these numbers have basically just been low. And we were asking the governors yesterday. Remember, Governor Nyoro told us, I received this jab. The next day, I'm seeing in the news, countries in Europe are basically suspending
the same
this
one.
jab. And I can understand when people they have that hesitancy, because they are consuming news from a global perspective and they're seeing the same jab you're telling me to come for is the same one that this country has suspended.
This is actually a communication problem more than anything else. You see, when you are told this thing has been licensed for emergency use, you are actually being told, not in so loudly, that the trial phase hasn't ended. Okay? Now, with every trial of this nature, there is what they call a DSMB, a Data Safety and Management Board. And what you hear or what you read, the communication you see from countries in Europe, that's exactly what happens. If people complain that there is an issue and they're not sure whether it's being caused by this, you stop.
You stop it first.
You don't take chances. You stop. When you ascertain that there's no connection, then you continue. But you don't continue so long as there are complaints. It's just a normal process. Now, the way it is then reported is that, okay, now.
This thing is giving people blood clots.
Stopped. Not stopped. It was a pause. But those who manage these affairs, again, have failed in communicating it effectively and saying this is a normal process when you have such a situation.
Can you imagine, City, in this country today, if somebody who has gotten a jab actually fell seriously ill of something else, other causes, and it was reported, this person fell seriously ill 3 days after getting the jab.
Finish. Done.
Now, do you see where the failure I'm talking about it becomes hazardous?
Yes.
If this is explained in advance and say, okay, apart from the symptoms you may get, you will understand that when these things occur, for your safety, we will halt. Until we ascertain that there is no relation whatsoever between the condition that person has and the jab. Okay? So when it happens, we say, no, we were told this can happen, and this is just a normal procedure. But when you leave us to the vagaries of our imagination, we know.
Kwisha. Joseph in Nairobi. Good morning.
Morning, too.
Good morning.
Hi.
Hello.
Yes, now, I don't know if you guys saw a video that Bill Gates and some other guys were talking about some billions of people need to die in the world. Anyone saw that?
No.
I actually heard about it.
Yes.
And clearly there's a point you want to make. Let us hear it, please.
Yes. They can't just kill people by guns in the street. They can't just poison food or anything. You might get a job here, and then by the time 7 years later, you're no longer, or maybe fertility or such things. There's something about these vaccines. There's a reason as to why some other countries, superpower countries, are rejecting the same.
Allow me to just interject there. Please allow me to interject. They're not rejecting it. They have halted. Yes. They have paused. They have not rejected it.
Okay. And a few days later, actually, the medical board in Europe came back and said they're good, clear,
yes.
And they resumed.
Yes.
Well, is there a criteria to confirm that the very same vaccine going to other countries is the very same one coming to Kenya?
In terms of what?
Is there a criteria to confirm that the very same vaccine going to Europe or US is the very same vaccine coming to Africa? Let me say Africa, not even Kenya.
Okay. So do I understand you to be saying that you believe that the vaccines that are coming to Africa are different from the vaccines that are being used in Europe? Is that what you're trying to say?
Exactly. Yes.
And how would you know this?
Look for that video. The one Bill Gates and other super, guys. You listen to them, and you might get a point.
Okay, Joseph.
And almost everyone in Kenya is fearing this vaccine for their own reason. You hear my fear and my group of friends?
Actually, I hear you very clearly.
Vaccine?
Your fear is yes. Loud.
And you have reason to be afraid because the problem is not the vaccine, but the information around vaccine production, vaccine rollout, it's been inadequate. So your fears have a clear justification.
Yes.
Thank you, Joseph.
You have to also to think.
Ruth, good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Fine, thank you.
I already got my vaccine. That was on Tuesday.
Yes.
And just to echo what the gentleman has just spoken about, there's a lot of conspiracy theories going around in regards to the vaccine.
Yep.
Yes, this is a video that has been going on. But my feeling is a lot of apathy, not only to the general public, even to the healthcare workers, sadly. And the interesting thing is, like, the Kenya Medical Association on Wednesday had a webinar just to reassure the medical fraternity about the safety of the vaccine. Because when the vaccine first landed in Kenya, it was during that period that we had the information about the blood clots. And healthcare workers are just like normal any other person.
Yep.
So even them were fearing, the side effects. Yeah. So for me, what I feel is there's a lot of misinformation going around, and it's upon us as the people who are exposed, people who, for lack of a better word, say learned, to really go out, and just reassure the public. What I've been doing as a Kenyan is like to just reassure the people around me and share the information where they can get their vaccine, and try and answer any question that I feel like I'm able to answer.
Yeah.
Because I feel like it's really important for us to get the right information, and it is important to just to educate the public on the benefits of this vaccine.
That's very true.
Thirdly, I do not know what the Ministry of Health or the government is putting in place in terms of sensitizing the public about the benefits of the vaccine and reassuring them of all these other concerns that they are having. And the only option I can do as a Kenyan is just to educate them on the benefit of having this vaccine. It is better I have the 65% protection than have this.
True. That's very true.
So,
Ruth, if you don't mind me asking you, so you say you got your jab on Tuesday?
Yes, I did.
Where did you get it?
Nairobi Hospital, and it was free.
And this is the AstraZeneca government rollout.
Yes. And we are very professional.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you work in Nairobi Hospital, or did you have to go from your workstation to Nairobi Hospital?
I had to go from my workstation to go to Nairobi Hospital.
How did you get the information that you needed to go to Nairobi Hospital?
I'd walked into Nairobi Hospital for other reasons, and then I found there was a queue, and there was a vaccination center written everywhere. I inquired, and they told me, yes, they're giving injections to, members of public, and that's how I went in. I just queued and I got my vaccination. It was something that was so short, took less than 30 minutes.
So you don't even work in the healthcare sector?
I work as a front care worker.
Okay, I get it.
Yes.
So the second bit of my question is, after you got your vaccine, and you say it was a very short time, within 30 minutes, did you get any other follow-up information? Like, these are the likely side effects that you could get?
No, I just got a message from the MOH that I've been vaccinated and all that. But the nurse at Nairobi Hospital told me the kind of side effects to expect, what to do in case I get no side effects. Yeah. So, of course, being that I have a background in medical, so I'm really aware of some of those things that I'm supposed to look out for.
Okay. How would you explain so there's that apathy and there's the fear, because like you say, healthcare workers are just as human as the rest of us are. But the fact that you had not gotten this information in your workplace or your workstation to tell you where you can go and get the vaccine, do you think this also is contributing to the low numbers that have been vaccinated so far?
I really wouldn't know, because I think maybe from where we work, we had already been told about the vaccination.
Yeah.
So I knew about the vaccination point at Kenyatta and Mbagathi. My plan was actually to go to Mbagathi. I just chanced upon the Nairobi Hospital vaccination center by chance. So it's something that I already knew where to get the vaccination. Talking from also with other colleagues, they are also aware that the places, the site, the injection centers, they know where the vaccination centers are. So I wouldn't really be in a position to say that the reason why this apathy is because they don't know where they're supposed to get their vaccination from.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Ruth, for sharing with us.
You're welcome.
Zachary in Nakuru, good morning.
Oh, good morning, everyone, including Japuji.
Good morning, Zachary.
Japuji, you had me asking for you yesterday.
I was informed, yes, I was informed that you are inquiring into my health or the lack of it thereof.
Yeah, because we became worried. We are coming worried.
I am very well, thank you, and thank you for your concern.
Oh, thank you. Welcome. I'm concerned about everyone there. And may God continue taking care of you. Now, Mr. Eric.
Yes.
My life is comfortable right now because of science. And I adore science, and I adore those people who do research. I adore those governments who provide a lot of money in doing research. And I'm very sure you have eaten meat. With your mouth, not with anything else. Meat, yeah?
Yes.
The one you chew, yeah?
Yes. Not nyama ya uongozi.
Pada, sio nyama mpadala. So, even meat, like me, I don't do chicken, yeah? Because I'm allergic to it. I get nausea, you see? That does not mean that I go telling my family and my whatever that meat is so bad, don't take it. You know Panadol. Panadol is the ordinary whatever you buy across the counter, yeah? On the counter, that is, yeah? It also has side effects. I do not know who is this person who came up with this idea of we talking about bad mouthing the vaccine. And some of these things that are being said by relatively educated people are affecting our mamas in the village. Down here, kwa ground, me niko kwa ground, Bwana Eric. And I meet with the ordinary Joe, I told you that, yeah? And the talk in the current talk, yeah? That is holding currency is this vaccine is due to the attack who are terrorized or what, you know? I remember I was there when we used to be given maziwa ya nyayo. And I remember some people trying to say, oh, they are trying to sanitize it to castrate us through this milk. And they could throw and I would take it to my mama and she was very happy. Oh, watch it, you know. Therefore, my message is this, yeah. Can we go and take the vaccine?
Okay.
And you people, I told you, and I'm going to continue telling you that you have got the duty of telling the general public, go take the vaccine. And you have a nice day, guys.
Thank
you, Zachary.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
14 minutes to 10. This is Kenya's biggest conversation. Time for us to look at how the roads are this morning. And then we take your calls, more of your calls. Do you know somebody who's received the COVID-19 vaccine so far? Where have they taken it from? Is it you? Can you share your experience? Or what should happen? Do you have this apathy and some fear about the vaccine? Let's hear that as well. What is it that you feel for or against the COVID-19 vaccine? Good morning.
Sugar and spice and everything nice, just the way you like it.
The Spice Drive.
Did you have a great day? I hope you did. I intend to make it better from 3 p.m. to 7 p.m. I'm going to be taking you home nice and chill. Everyone is welcome aboard. The hashtag is Spice Drive and, of course, SpiceFM KE on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter.
The Spice Drive with Monique. The official soundtrack of getting you where you need to be.
Have you seen them? Am I live?
Yes, it's a very nice outfit, I must say.
Thank you. Asante sana.
The compliment is well received.
Good morning and thank you. Everyone was asking me what channel is SpiceFM.
96.7. Tell them that, right?
Yes, now they know.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Pleasure to have
you.
you.
What a beautiful studio, my friend.
I've been to other radio stations, but I've never seen anything like this.
Thank you. And it's very nice to be in a modern studio. Absolutely brilliant.
And I have to say, it's a very cool ambiance here in your radio room. Just for our listeners, I think it is below zero in this room here. Very Swiss temperatures.
Okay, so looking much better, guys. Around most parts of the city, it's not too bad now. I think traffic is flowing well. Outbound on Mombasa Road, a little bit there as you approach Bellevue, but then it gets better as you then go towards the Nyeri Stadium roundabout. So not much, guys. Looking much better this Thursday morning. Let's see what it looks like through most of the morning and into the afternoon, shall we? Just to remember that some roads are closed because of construction on Mombasa Road. That specifically is Lusaka Bunyala. That's not happening, at least for now. It might open up later, but for now, just know that you can't use it. Thika Road looks good. Coming into the city, it looks fine. Out then, from Uhuru Highway towards Westlands is what slows down some. But apart from that, it looks pretty good. Okay, talk to us through the day should you need to. SpiceFM KE on Twitter. Text on 40127.
Spice FM. Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
10. The conversation continues. So what exactly is happening? So Ruth says she went to Nairobi Hospital. She's a frontline worker. She had no idea that this was happening. She saw a tent. She went, she inquired. She was told, oh, yeah, come. Got the job.
Does that strike you as someone, a situation or a process that has about whom the information is widely spread? You happen to be. It's almost sounding like I passed by KEMSA.
Yes.
Yeah. And I was told that there are tenders being taken.
You know, this one...
The much that she knew is that it's being rolled out, and she had been told from her workstation that at KNH and Bagathi you can get.
That she was told, and that she
Then
knew.
she goes to Nairobi Hospital, another business. She finds a tent. She asks. She's told, yes, you can take it here. And she does it.
Look, it was not difficult. And I think that's what we need to look at here. It was not difficult to have that done. She went, it was done, and she left. So in as much as it was not difficult at that particular center to have this done, then it shouldn't be difficult to set up in other medical facilities to have it done at the same time. That's why I'm telling you here because of the simplicity, you see something happening like this at this one center, then there must be something that more than meets the eye here. I don't understand.
You see, that
if
is
you
where
can set it up around medical facilities in the country, why not do it and then tell people that you have done it? It's not difficult. And you see now, in the absence of such a thing, in the absence of such a plan and communication of the same, you then give people ammunition, and good ammunition, to say that there's something going on.
Look, we had the KCP exam.
Yep.
There was communication about the exam, what should happen, what should not happen. We even have a timetable.
The date for the exam was set a long time ago.
Precisely. Which exam is this? The works. Have you had even a squeak? No. Clockwork. It was
Everybody
planned.
knows what they're supposed to be doing, when they're supposed to be doing it,
How
who is
many
supposed to be doing
examination
what.
centers countrywide, and they all received the exam.
The exam papers.
They did.
On time. And
They
they know
did.
what they're supposed to be doing, who is supposed to be doing it, where it's supposed to be going, the days within which it's supposed to be administered. Nobody's asking questions. Oh, I didn't know this didn't come.
The person who's supposed to be a supervisor, invigilator, knows I'm supposed to
And
be
they've
in
known.
this center.
We even had a case yesterday of a center that was shut down because, as far as the register is concerned, they were supposed to have been shut down in 2019. So everybody who was doing that exam was told, hold on, you go and do your exam somewhere else because this center doesn't exist in our database. You know, it can be done.
And you know, it's the same government.
Same government.
And there,
same
we
government.
are talking about 1 million people sat their exam over 3 days. 1 million.
Clean.
Sat their exam over 3 days. In the next couple of days, another 1 million are going to sit their KCSE.
Yes.
We are talking about inoculating 500,000, half that number. Not over 3 days, over a period of what? Like 2 or 3 months.
Yes, 2 months.
Months.
See? That's being called loss for words.
It even causes temporary dumbness.
Well,
Ruth told us about this webinar that was being conducted by the Kenya Medical Association. So the Kenya Medical Association speaking to their members and telling them, guys, the vaccine is okay, is good.
Take it.
This is a conversation that should have happened before that thing even landed at JKIA. Before. Bring in the stakeholders. Make sure that your critical stakeholders are on board with the plan and they know everything they have asked, all the questions, you've responded to all their concerns. They know. When we asked that of the government spokesman, all did he tell us? But there were doctors
There are
in the
doctors
task
in
force.
that task force. They know.
The doctors in the task force represent doctors. But did you go beyond that to have, for example, bring in all these associations, Kenya Medical Association, the Nursing Council of Kenya, the clinical officers, then bring in the unions, basically ensure that all of them understand, bring in Kina Yegon and the lab technicians, all of them, bring them on board and then say that thing is coming next week. And after next week, this is the rollout plan, and then we shall tell you when you shall get it at your place. No. This is the time.
More importantly, did we hear the ministry telling people these things that we're discussing here, that folks, vaccine, this is what it's about.
Yes.
All right? The likelihood, even before Europe started doing their thing of pausing, when you have this thing at this so-called phase that we're talking about, what it means is this. It's not difficult to communicate. You know, this isn't secretive information. It's information that is in the public domain, but they should say it. So when the vaccine lands and we start vaccinating, this is what we expect. Yeah. This is what will happen. When this happens, so that when Europe started saying, oh, blood clots, they come out and say, remember when we briefed you, we told you that when you roll out such things, certain things are bound to happen. And that is not, they haven't stopped it. They have paused it as they wait confirmation as to whether this and this. That constant information, the Dear Kenyan thing is wonderful, but it goes beyond just telling us the numbers.
The Dear Kenyan thing is wonderful. Okay.
No, it is wonderful. It is wonderful. And it is good. And it must be commended. But taking the view that perhaps Kenyans won't understand, they will understand. Explain it.
Now, but look, you see what you're saying, they know, CT. They know. You know how, and we're not talking about something that is foreign. And I'm going to give the example again of the polio vaccine. They went around the country. We're not even talking about the country, you know, and they went two by two. And they went 2 by 2 and vaccinated millions of children around this country. They came to your doorstep. To your doorstep. They didn't even ask you to come to them. They went to your doorstep, vaccinated people in your home. And then they finished. The communication was sent out. They let you know what it was going to be about. They got consent from parents, went about. It was announced when they finished. Same ministry. They finished and then they announced to you. That's what I'm telling you. There's something wrong.
This is the unfortunate
There's something
thing.
wrong.
In
It
the
doesn't make
absence of this
sense.
clarity,
There's a scandal brewing.
Now,
something
see,
is
dare
wrong.
say.
Yes, now.
Well, I don't blame him for. I will
who's
say the
eating
same
our
thing.
vaccine?
Conspiracy
Or is it
theorists
really there?
are going to have a field
Or
day
maybe
on
there were
this one.
only 50,000. Or maybe the 530,000 they said was coming in.
Those things did not leave Kitengela.
See?
That's the yes.
Bas,
Do you
no,
blame
no,
anybody? Do you blame
No,
anybody for thinking like that?
I actually don't. In fact, I was waiting for Eric to continue and say, some of it crossed our borders. Because that's the next thing someone is going to say.
The way they said they sold blood to Somalia.
They are now labeled Sputnik.
Yes, and yet we know very well. Look, the gentleman who called and started expressing his anxiety, his fears and apprehensions, I am glad he did. Because he spoke out. But many people think and feel exactly the way he does.
Yes, sir.
And there is, you're talking about a national effort to actually explain and say, folks, it isn't quite as bad as that. It is this. Say it so that people at least have heard it. Whether they believe it now, that's up to you. But you've heard it. But it's not being heard. So,
It is not being
what do you
heard.
think is happening?
In the absence of communication, you create a vacuum and people are going to fill that void with speculation. That is what is going to
Not
happen.
just
And you're not going to blame
speculation.
them. You're not going to blame them.
Ripe tending towards overripe speculation. Okay? And anything that the imagination can conjure up that is negative will come into play.
We have people in the community today on social media saying that whatever is being vaccinated, how people are being vaccinated, they're being vaccinated with water and changa. That's the real. It's true.
The real vaccine.
The real vaccine is not here
sold.
anymore. Out. Can you see? That is what people are saying. Can you see? Do you blame them?
And do you hear any rebuttal? Do you hear of information to the contrary saying, folks, it is not true?
Nope.
This is what is actually happening. This is what we're doing. No.
Nope.
Now we have another one where we are talking about the private sector being allowed to come in and bring the vaccine, and the price is all over. Is it 11,000? Is it 8,000? Where
Is
is
it
this?
in this place? Is it in this other hospital? Is it in this? Oh, and by the way, they will only increase with the time. This one isn't going to decrease.
And how do we know that what you're receiving is what you actually got a license for?
God almighty.
There's still time to salvage this
yes,
situation.
you got a license from the Pharmacy and Poisons Board for this particular vaccine, but are we sure that that's what you're giving us? Are we sure I paid 11,000 bob for that?
There's still time to salvage the situation. I beg you. They should just please. Unless, of course, you want all these theories that are being peddled about to be seen as truth. There's time to
Those
save
guys
this
in Alfie House, all they do is they get pissed off at us for telling them what
the truth.
Yes.
Telling them the truth.
That all they do.
Telling them the truth.
It brings in another discussion, by which we will have for another day. When people perceive themselves to be more important than they actually are, and they misunderstand their role in society, they then have this illusionary view of superiority which they have. And the word is illusionary here, all right? They forget completely. Public servant, just that, servant. You are a worker. You are there to ensure that your employer gets the benefit. Now, unfortunately, even this benefit that is here, it's with us. It's going to be tainted because we do not have information that can easily be made available.
True.
Simple,
Siti,
straightforward.
Let's just conclude with the day's proverb.
Let us do precisely that. Leadership, like a borrowed garment.
Please, have your house. Remember that.
Leadership is
It's like a borrowed garment. Whatever position you hold, Cabinet Secretary, Chief Administrative Secretary, Director General of Health, borrowed garment.
Soon to be discarded.
Yes. Thank you for tuning into the Situation Room. Join us again tomorrow morning, 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. And keep it right here for music and more. And Monique will be here at 3 with Spice Drive. Good morning.